The best kaiju horror manga that I've ever read has to be Creatures by Shingo Honda, the same mangaka that brought us Psycho Pass, another great series that I've covered on this channel. The series is a kaiju lover's dream manga, at least for the first half of it, as it does get a little iffy around the other half of the series. But why did it go so wrong? And what did it possibly do to make a 10 out of 10 series into one of the biggest disappointments that I've ever read? As some of you know, I already made 3 videos covering Creatures, so for the new viewers, we have all 3 videos right here. And for the ones who have watched them all already, parts 4 and 5 are here as well, so if you want to skip to the new stuff, the timestamp will be on screen. This whole month we are going to be doing a voting poll, taking votes for your favorite horror manga or manhwa. The series with the most votes will be getting a video review released July 30th. The winner will be announced on July 1st, so go down in the description below and click on the Google form to begin voting now. But without further ado, let's get on with the video. Horror not all the time has to be based on messing up the mind and shadowy ghosts in the corner of rooms. Sometimes a really scary and sick looking monster makes a horror series entertaining. The first horror manga that comes to mind is Hakaijuu or Creature by Shingo Honda. Fans of the channel know Honda for the series Psycho Pass, but before this, Creature was one of his most popular series with a questionable review score. So today, let's go over the first 4 volumes of the series and see if Creature lives up to the hype or if Psycho Pass was Honda's only good work. At Tachikawa High School, 2 best friends, Akira Takashiro and Eiji Kudo, are in school when their other best friend, Miku Aizawa, has come back to Tokyo on a school trip. The other classmates think that Akira and Eiji are brothers due to their matching bracelet, but it was a gift from Miku before she moved away. The class president, now Shirosaki, is a bit unusual but is still popular with all of the boys in class. Akira just got promoted to the starting position in the basketball team. Eiji is excited for him but makes it into a competition. At the next game, whoever scores more will get to confess to Miku. Both of the boys have been in love with her since they were kids, and none of them told her how they felt when she left. So, to prevent some weirdo from getting her, Eiji acknowledges Akira as a rival. Akira goes to the storage closet to get a ball, but suddenly, the room begins to shake, and a shelf lands directly on top of Akira. When he wakes up, Akira crawls out and opens the door to hear crunching noises. He takes a closer look and sees Eiji's arm laying on the ground, ripped off from the body. Akira falls back and takes another peek inside to see multiple 3-fingered arms charging straight at him. He barricades the door and waits for the banging to stop, but after a bit, he takes another peek and spots his phone on the ground. He dashes to it and an alarm goes off, alerting the monstrous arms, whose fingers reveal razor-sharp teeth. He makes a run for it, slamming the door on the arms and tripping on some more dead bodies. A student pleads for help, but his lower half is getting eaten by the arms. Akira runs to his classroom to find a pile of dead bodies, and some eyes below that pile asking for help. It turned out to be Nao, who is freaked out and doesn't understand what is happening. The arms appear behind her, and Akira pushes her out of the way as they run away together. The ground begins to shake again as they're near the exit. They run out, but something huge crushes the school behind them. As they look up, they witness the massive body of an alien-like monster. The top of a body in a dome shape with 2 giant legs and a tail with 6 long thin arms coming. The monster raises its other foot, breaking through the other half of the school, and takes a step behind Akira and Nao. As it continues to walk towards the city, Akira tries to call for help, but there's no signal. They walk towards their town, but the destruction seems odd. That giant monster didn't do it. They see a woman in the distance asking for help, when suddenly she gets her face cut in half by another monster, with a giant claw as a hand. They take cover in a parking garage, but 2 other students are there, a bully by the name of Tadokoro and a nerd that they call Woolhead. They plan to work together, going to the closest house and moving on to the next. The first house that they choose to go to is Woolhead's, but Akira doesn't feel comfortable collaborating with someone like Tadokoro due to the way that he treats Woolhead. Akira smells something awful though, and then they turn to see the grotesque monster standing behind them. They run towards Woolhead's house, and a moving car crashes straight into the monster, tipping it over. As they reach the apartment, Woolhead begins to laugh, saying that he's prayed every day for something to destroy the world and kill everyone who has ever bullied him. Woolhead screams that there's a monster behind Tadokoro, but there's nothing there, as Woolhead runs to his apartment and locks them outside. Suddenly, the claw monster climbs up to their apartment, but gets taken down by a giant centipede-like monster that was at the school. They try to run to the elevator, but the centipede monster is blocking the way. It opens its mouth to reveal corpses of their own classmates. They run down the stairs as the centipede wraps around the apartment complex, destroying all the rooms and killing Woolhead. They run past a house with the TV playing the news. However, the news stations don't mention anything about the monsters. They check the phone again to see if there's service, but Akira saw that he got a message from Miku before the attack, saying that she was at Tachikawa Station. Akira wants to go, but Todokoro thinks it's a bad idea since the monsters would usually gather where most people would. However, Nao says that there's a self-defense force stationed there, so they might have an evacuation plan. The centipede monster finds them and they run away. Just when they think they're safe, they realize that there's more centipede monsters roaming around. One of them grabs Nao, but Akira saves her with a pipe, but also gets knocked away. Just before the monster was about to kill them, something else caught his attention and it left. The group wonders why that is, but when Akira threw away his pipe, they realize that it didn't make a noise when it fell. They check their surroundings and see a massive hole in the middle of the town. Tadokoro has lost hope, but Akira has unfinished business and needs to go to the train station and tell her about Eiji. The group arrives at Tachikawa Station, filled with abandoned cars and corpses. They see a group of survivors running towards them, but they tell them to run, saying that the big one is coming. The ground quakes as an enormous monster emerges, dwarfing the buildings around it. Its body resembles jagged, armor-like layers with a grotesque head composed entirely of just sharp teeth. It shouts a deafening roar and everyone runs towards the exit. The volume ends with the survivors pushing Tadokoro out of the way as the monstrous giant closes in, its relentless steps leaving nothing but destruction in its wake. The giant monster head towards the south exit, giving Akira, Nao, and Todokoro a chance to escape. As they reach a ledge overlooking the destroyed city, a voice calls out to them from the nearby cinema. A man motions them inside where a group of survivors have gathered. Akira scans the crowd, but Miku is nowhere to be seen. The man introduces himself as Mitsuru Takashige, a former gym teacher, and offers them sanctuary. The survivors exchange what little information that they have, and Mitsuru invites Akira and his group to stay. Tadokoro agrees, exhausted and eager for safety, but Akira refuses. He's determined to find Miku no matter the risk. Mitsuru and Todokoro try to convince him, insisting that the cinema is the safest place left, but Akira counters that no place is guaranteed safe. Nao asks for Akira's phone, studying a picture of Miku before handing it back. Nao is going to join him since he saved her life. Mitsuru still doesn't let them leave, while a brash survivor by the name of Majima argues that they should leave, claiming it's less trouble for the group. A survivor speculates that the monsters might have a resting period, offering a small window of opportunity. Against Mitsuru's protest, the theater owner volunteers to guide Akira, and Mitsuru reluctantly agrees to help. Outside, Mitsuru, Akira, and Nao scout the south exit, where the giant monster had passed earlier. Mitsuru hands Nao a handkerchief, but as he adjusts his pockets, a photo slips out. Akira picks it up, a picture of a young girl. Mitsuru hesitates before admitting that she's his daughter, but they've been separated. The group reaches the ticket gate, now sealed off. Akira notices another massive hole beyond the exit and runs up to the roof for a better look. From above, he spots a similar hole on the east side. A little to the left of it, the giant monster rests atop a cluster of buildings. To the west, where the self-defense force was supposed to be stationed, there's nothing but another hole. Akira realizes that it's not random holes, but an encircling trench around the entire city, meaning they're trapped in Tachikawa. As Akira possesses his revelation, two new survivors approach and lead them to another hidden group. Akira immediately asks about Miku, but no one has seen her. Mitsuru begins organizing a plan to lead the group to the cinema safely. Before they leave, Akira is approached by Mako Sakura, a former classmate from middle school. She hints that she saw Miku but doesn't elaborate. Akira's thoughts are interrupted by an ominous presence, a massive needle-like monster standing behind the group. Without warning, it slices a man's head off clean, revealing a mantis-like monster with elongated limbs and a predatory stance. Panic erupts. The survivors scatter as the monsters strike, its razor-sharp limbs carving through flesh. Akira, Nao, and Sakura break away from the main group, only to witness another mantis-like creature impale a man, causing his body to grotesquely swell before exploding. The trio ducks into a store as more monsters descend. As they hide, Akira's alarm suddenly blares, drawing the creatures towards them as they tear apart the store. Luckily, Akira, Nao, and Sakura set up that distraction to escape, but finds themselves face to face with another mantis. Mitsuru appears, hurtling an object to divert the monster before using a fire extinguisher to fight off the others. As they make their way out, a survivor collapses. Mitsuru stops to help, but a monster appears behind the man. As Mitsuru tries to leave, the man grabs his ankle, accusing him of leading them to their deaths, saying that it's all his fault that they're dead. Furious, Mitsuru kicks the man hard in the face, leaving him to the mantis monster. However, Akira blames himself for all of their deaths, believing him running to the rooftop led to the group's demise. Before continuing, he demands to know where Sakura saw Miku. Mitsuru, frustrated, decides to just abandon Akira and focus on the others' safety. He urges Nao and Sakura to follow him, but Nao refuses to leave Akira's side. Sakura begins to explain when Akira suddenly shoves Nao out of the way as two enormous centipede monsters crash down, narrowly missing him. The creatures twist and coil together, forming a massive dome. Nao tries to stay with Akira, but Mitsuru drags her away, shouting to shut up and just listen to him. As more centipedes appear, Mitsuru picks up Nao and forces her to retreat to the cinema. Back at the theater, the survivors ask about Akira. Sakura hesitates, but Mitsuru coldly declares that he's dead. He informs the group about the trenches and the apparent absence of the self-defense force. Turning to Nao, he sternly warns everyone that the cinema is the safest place in Tachikawa right now, so no one must leave. Nao stands defiant, saying that she's leaving to go save Akira. Mitsuru snaps, "How many times do I have to tell you? Shut up and do as I say." Elsewhere, Akira regains consciousness beneath the centipede's dome. He uses his phone flashlight to reveal a grotesque sight: baby centipedes writhing as a massive tentacle gives birth to more. The babies wake up and the walls begin to fall and shatter, revealing a fully grown centipede monster. Akira runs away as he sees that the city is now filled with centipede domes. He races back to the theater to warn the others, only to find it eerily empty. The volume ends with Mitsuru sitting alone on the stage, blood smeared across his face. Mitsuru sits alone on the stage, blood streaked across his face, muttering, "Something terrible happened in this theater." He claims a monster broke in, and though they managed to stop it, the survivors panicked and barricade themselves in the bathroom. Akira surveys the eerie intact room, spotting bloodstains on the floor but no signs of destruction. Doubts creep into his mind. Did a monster really attack here? Mitsuru urges Akira to speak to the others and reassure them. Reluctantly, Akira heads to the bathroom and talks to Nao through the door. He tells her that it's safe and that the monsters are gone, but Nao's voice trembles. "What are you talking about?" When Akira mentions Mitsuru's story, Nao suddenly screams for him to run. Before Akira can react, Mitsuru grabs him by the neck, dragging him backwards. Mitsuru growls, threatening to kill Akira if she doesn't come out. Nao bursts through the door, swinging a mop at Mitsuru, but he catches it. As tension peaks, Majima enters with supplies, distracting Mitsuru long enough for Akira to knee him in the chin. Nao grabs another mop and smashes it against Mitsuru's head. The two escape, but Mitsuru grabs a sledgehammer and charges after them. He swings wildly, nearly hitting Nao, and screams at Akira, blaming him for always putting her in danger. They manage to barricade themselves in a storage room where they find Todokoro and another survivor, Takuya, bound and beat up. Takuya reveals that Mitsuru's leadership took a dark turn before Akira returned. After smacking Nao, Mitsuru turned on Todokoro when he tried to intervene, Takuya had also been beaten for attempting to stop him. Mitsuru had solidified control over the group through violence, sending Majima and a movie nerd survivor to scavenge for supplies. However, the movie nerd used the opportunity to escape the theater entirely. As Akira frees the others, Mitsuru begins smashing the door open. Akira tries to reason with him, bringing up his daughter, hoping to appeal to his humanity. But he admits that the girl wasn't his daughter, but a former student he had relentlessly pushed towards his idea of perfection. But when she accused him of sexual harassment, it ruined his whole career. But it's all okay now, because he found Nao, who he sees potential in being his ideal partner, his queen. The group readies themselves to fight back, but a centipede monster suddenly crashes through a window, killing Takuya. The creature lunges at Nao, but Mitsuru, wielding his sledgehammer, slams it in the head. The monster retaliates, biting Mitsuru's arm and flinging him across the room. Tadokoro grabs the hammer and strikes the centipede, distracting it long enough for Mitsuru to deliver the killing blow. As they catch their breath, Majima enters the room, screaming that there's an army of creatures inside. The survivors ready themselves for another fight, knowing that they have to free the people trapped in the bathroom. But centipedes swarm the hallway outside the door. Inside, a panicked survivor mistakes the noise for her boyfriend and opens the door, only to be grabbed and devoured. Sakura slams the door shut as another monster pounds against it. Akira charges in with a trolley, smashing into the monster and creating an opening. Sakura escapes, but the older couple, trapped inside the bathroom, urges them to leave. Akira hesitates but promises to come back for them. Outside, chaos reigns. 3 massive centipede monsters loom over the city, their swarms of offspring spilling onto the streets. As the survivors brace for another fight, a car barrels through, crushing the baby centipedes. The vehicle skids to a stop, narrowly dodging the mother centipede that destroyed the side of the theater. The movie nerd was the driver, as he tells the group to get in. There's not enough room for everyone, so Majima kicks Nao out of the car, intending to use her as bait. Before anyone could react though, Mitsuru snaps, grabbing Majima and hurling him towards the monsters. Majima's screams are cut short as he's torn apart, giving Nao a chance to climb into the car. The mother centipede chases them as the car tears through the ruined streets. The movie nerd expertly drifts around obstacles, but a baby centipede clings to their rear. Akira directs them through narrow alleyways. They finally stop at the edge of the trench, encircling the city. The giant centipede looms over them, posed to strike, but then stops. It stares at them for a tense moment before retreating back to the station. The survivors catch their breath and share a small meal. Akira presses Sakura for details about Miku, and she reluctantly admits that there's no point in looking for her. That's because Miku is already out of Tachikawa. She explains that Miku was last seen boarding a monorail to Tama Center, just minutes before the earthquake had trapped them. Relieved, Akira resolves to find a way to escape Tachikawa. The movie nerd suggests a risky plan. There's a helipad used by the self-defense force. If they could find a helicopter, they might be able to escape. However, no one knows how to fly, but the movie nerd was excited to do it, knowing that he could be the one to save everyone. That's why he escaped through the back door of the theater. Mitsuru grabs him by the neck, furious, blaming him for the destruction of the cinema and his plan to build a kingdom with Nao. But the nerd smirks, knowing that they can't kill him because he's the main character of this movie. The volume ends with tension intensifying, but a faint sound cuts through the silence. The survivors look up as 2 choppers appear overhead. The group waves frantically at the helicopters, but their signals are ignored as the aircraft disappeared into the horizon. As the helicopters are leaving, the movie nerd pulls out his phone and starts recording commentary. Tadokoro snatches the phone, scrolling through past footage, only to find a video showing baby centipedes breaking into the cinema. Fury erupts within the group as they confront the nerd. His nonchalant response was that he just wanted to document for history, only fueling Mitsuru's rage. Pinning the nerd to the ground, Mitsuru is ready to kill him, but Akira steps in to calm him down. The nerd seizes the moment to remind them that they should just be focusing on chasing down the helicopters to escape instead of fighting each other. With tension still high, the group piles into the car, chasing the helicopters towards a nearby helipad. When they arrive, The helicopters are eerily empty. Before they can process the scene, an army truck barrels past them, narrowly missing their vehicle. Totokoro tries flagging them down, but the soldiers inside remain unresponsive. They follow the truck to a station where the soldiers disembark and vanish into a nearby building. Akira, Totokoro, and the movie nerd decide to investigate, leaving the others in the army truck. Inside, they find the station crawling with monster eggs. As they explore, an elevator arrives with a horrifying clawed monster devouring a corpse inside. They try to sneak away, but Totokoro trips, alerting the creature. Before it could attack though, a fin mantis-like monster suddenly kills the clawed creature. The building erupts into chaos as mantis and claw monsters engage in territorial combat. The trio flees downstairs but is blocked by a centipede. Soldiers storm the scene, subduing the creature with tranquilizers. Totokoro eagerly approaches them, but the soldiers just ignore him, focused on capturing smaller creatures and collecting samples. Akira realizes that something is off, and they tail the soldiers as they secure more monsters into crates. Outside, Mitsuru, Nao, and Sakura remain hidden in the truck until soldiers discover them. Guns drawn, the soldiers order them to get out. Mitsuru resists and is swiftly subdued. Nao pleads for their lives, but a soldier coldly replies, "Our mission does not include saving lives." Akira rushes back, warning everyone of a giant centipede approaching. As the massive creature barrels towards them, the soldiers launch a barrage of rockets. The monster is injured but demolishes the building in its takedown. Amid the chaos, the nerd commandeers their car and drives it straight at the centipede, leaping out at the last moment. The soldiers blow up the vehicle, momentarily staggering the creature. Using the distraction, the group steals a ride on the soldiers' truck to the helipad. At the helipad, the soldiers load crates containing captured monsters into helicopters. When Akira begs to board, the commanding officer refuses, claiming that they've seen too much. The movie nerd, always optimistic, shows a dark video that he filmed back at the store. A human figure surrounded by centipedes, but they're not attacking him. The leader tried to take the phone, but the movie nerd vows to break it if they don't let them on. The leader hesitates but ultimately agrees, splitting the group into two helicopters, one with Akira, Nao, and Mitsuru, and the other Totokoro, Sakura, and the movie nerd. As the helicopters lift off, Akira peers down at the hole, wondering why the creatures wouldn't get near it. Noticing something strange, at the bottom of the hole, a massive, unblinking eye stares back at him. Panic spreads as Totokoro notices the same thing, but the movie nerd is thrilled at the discovery. Before Akira can ask what it means, the leader tells him that they shouldn't be frightened. They're gonna go to the headquarters to report everything that they experience. Mitsuru tells him that he's not going to help a bunch of randoms, but the leader points his gun at them, saying that they are a precious source of information, and that the government will be responsible for their safety. Nao is shocked that the government knew about what was going on in Tachikawa, but the leader says that the trench that was meant to quarantine the city didn't work due to that thing in the hole. Suddenly, his body begins to contort. His head explodes as a mantis monster emerges, having melted its way out of its crate. Chaos erupts as the creature attacks Nao, and Mitsuru shields her, taking a fatal stab to the shoulder. Bleeding heavily, he wrestles the mantis, ripping its nose off with sheer determination. The mantis cuts off his arm and tries to throw him off the helicopter. Shouting to Nao, he tells her that he will never die and that he will see her soon. As Nao cries, he tells her that he loves her, and in his final act, Mitsuru hurls himself and the mantis out of the helicopter. The remaining helicopter barely escapes, but the relief is short-lived. The second helicopter, carrying Sakura, Totokoro, and the nerd, is obliterated by the giant's swipe. The pilot of Akira's helicopter tries to evade the giant's monstrous jaws, but its massive tail strikes, crippling the craft. As the helicopter spirals out of control, Akira and Nao hold hands, bracing for impact. The volume ends with the wreckage smoldering on the other side of the trench, and the centipede sample looming over the parts, clutching onto Akira's charred wristband in its mandibles. I really did enjoy this series. I'm really glad that I found a monster invasion story similar to something like Cloverfield. I love the designs of the monsters. They're all just so sick with a ton of details and just a lot of inspirations from different horror medias. I love the dynamics of the survivors. Akira is that good main character who just doesn't really solve things, but he does try his hardest to do it. It's kind of realistic and his actions are pretty understandable. He's like the ultimate ride or die. Now is a girl who tries to calm down the scenario, but is clearly in love with Akira. She just doesn't show it yet, but hopefully in the future they do show that if they do survive the helicopter crash. I also really like Totokoro. He was like an annoying, mean bully, but he showed his true self pretty quickly. He's scared, he's cowardly, but he sticks up when needed and has always become sort of like the comedian of the group. He was first very unlikable, but now I started to tolerate him. He was a pretty good, interesting character. And honestly, I think the only thing that I didn't like about this is that we don't really see much of what happened between them before the monsters. We don't really know much about now. We just know that she was popular in high school. We know that she was the class president, but we didn't know how she was as a child or things leading up to it. We also don't know much about Totokoro. We just know that he was a bully, but we don't know anything about his backstory or why he became a bully. I feel like having backstory to these characters will make a lot of their dynamic a lot better. Makes us definitely enjoy watching them more. And the other characters, I could literally care less about. There's nothing much to Sakura except that she knows about Miku and that she's known Akira since like middle school, but that's about it. Other than that, she's just pretty useless. She's just there in the background. She doesn't really do much. The movie nerd is just an annoying, irritating character, but what makes him even more annoying is that he proves the main characters wrong by getting them out of trouble multiple times. He did save them with the car, he did save them with the plan of the helicopter, he did bargain them in the helicopters, he did also cause a massive distraction towards a monster. He was really useful, but it's his ego that it just makes us hate this character so much, and I feel like it is on purpose, so it's kind of good that I really hate this character. But I think one of the worst characters in this whole series is the PDF file Mitsuru. He is just a musclehead that was at first well-spoken, clearly sane, but then he just gets roided up mid-arc and just becomes this really dumb gym bro who's obsessed with this minor. I love though that with every win that the group gets, the more trouble that they get into. The situation is always intense. It lets us breathe for just a couple of seconds until something terrible just happens. The tension is always there, and the monsters just get scarier and scarier every time they're shown on screen. The volume begins with Miku in Tokyo, snapping a picture at Tokyo Tower before texting her friends, Akira and Eiji, and then leaving the city. She heads to her hometown, Hino City, where she reunites with Eiji's younger brother, Kenji, whom she hasn't seen in 2 years. Kenji, while happy to see her, questions why she's here. She explains she's on a school trip and wanted to check in with her old friends. Suddenly, an earthquake strikes Tachikawa City, triggering an alarm and reports of a massive collapse. Army trucks arrive at the Tama monorail station, and a wall rapidly forms, sealing off the entire area. Civilians from Tachikawa are evacuated through a gate in the wall, but the atmosphere turns chaotic as those outside demand answers. An officer fires into the air asserting order. Kenji snaps a photo, despite Miku urging him to focus on contacting his brother. However, Kenji brushes off her concerns, convinced that everything will resolve soon. Oddly though, the news glosses over the disaster, shifting to trivial stories about cute dogs and pets. Miku tries to contact Akira and Eiji but gets no response. Staying at Kenji's house, she notices the media blackout surrounding Tachikawa and suspects something sinister. Kenji too grows suspicious. Walls that size just don't appear overnight. He reveals a photo sent by a friend showing a massive silhouette looming over the city. Rumors of a war between humans and monsters circulate, and Kenji becomes determined to investigate. Miku is furious, accusing him of being reckless and uncaring about his brother. Kenji snaps, expressing frustration as always being compared to Eiji. Defiant, Miku decides to breach the wall herself to find her friends. Kenji begrudgingly helps by distracting the guards at the station, allowing them to sneak onto the train tracks. As officers pursue them, the two run onto the tracks and then leap into a river, narrowly escaping. As the river aggressively pushes them, Kenji grabs onto land and pulls him and Miku out of the river. Walking around an abandoned neighborhood, they overhear soldiers discussing a special creature and a crashed helicopter. Hidden nearby, they witness dead bodies being loaded into the trucks under the ruse of a rescue operation. An officer confronts them, and they flee, reaching the edge of a trench where, on the other side, is filled with destruction caused by kaijus. The two hide under a bridge as something approaches them in the water. A small, weak centipede monster appears out of the water, likely one of the samples the soldiers mentioned. The creature is fragile, but before they can act, the officer reappears pointing his gun at them. Kenji grabs the centipede to use it as a shield. The officer demands to hand it over, but Kenji and Miku back up towards the walls. Kenji and Miku reach a bridge where the walls are nearby, while the officer still has his gun pointed at them. The officer says to forget the mission and says the most important thing to do is to eliminate all threats. However, as he's distracted, the creature wakes up and attacks his face. The officer overpowers the creature and tries to kill it, but before he could, another officer shoots him straight in the head. The new officer says that he was causing too much chaos and asks for the sample back. Kenji looks like he's about to hand it over, but instead throws it over the railing on the bridge. Miku and Kenji take the opportunity to jump off the railing as well, as the officer shoots at them while calling for backup. Miku and Kenji reach the wall and swim under it to escape. Back at Kenji's house, they secure the creature in a cage, planning their next move. Miku is distraught, fearing for her family and friends. Kenji tells Miku to go back home, but she can't just do nothing with her friends in danger. Kenji screams at her that it's too dangerous. He's going to sell the monster to the mass media and expose what's happening in Tachikawa to the world. Miku gets a call from her mother in Kyoto, asking if she could come home. Suddenly, the ground begins to shake. Miku's mother looks up to see a giant kaiju with a massive eyeball coming out of the ground. The ground begins to deteriorate and Miku's mom falls with the debris. Different kinds of creatures crawl out of the hole, including a massive 6-armed insect-like kaiju with a giant eyeball in his chest, looming over Kyoto. They prepare to head to a TV station on bikes as a group of army helicopters fly past them. They arrive at a TV station in Konitachi City and meet up with some of Miku's classmates, ready to take a tour of the station. During the guided tour, security recognizes them as fugitives and calls for backup. Kenji calls on the guide asking if they could go to the news station. However, the guide says that the news station is not a part of the tour and continues on. Suddenly, the centipede monster awakens and Kenji and Miku run off to try to retie its restraints. The centipede breaks free and runs off. Miku and Kenji run after it, but it gets interrupted by one of the boys in the tour group. He says if they're in trouble, then he can help them. Kenji yells at Miku to leave him, but Miku goes up to him and says she wants him to capture something. A one-eyed creature with a lot of fangs, and if they leave it alone, then terrible things will happen. The boy doesn't really understand, but Miku yells at him to hurry. The three split up while we cut to a studio recording a TV show. Chaos ensues as the creature attacks a studio participant on live television, horrifying the audience. The boy is in the bathroom and sees blood dripping on the ground. He looks up and he sees the centipede hanging from its tail. Its body opens up, revealing rows of fangs, and it launches itself onto the boy's face. The volume ends with Miku searching for the centipede when she hears something walking in the hallway, only to see her friend transformed into a horrific fusion of him and the centipede monster. Ichijo, visibly distressed, approaches Miku, begging for help. He complains that the creature is hurting him and that his body feels unbearably hot. Two officers arrive, catching his attention. He pleads with them to remove the creature, but one officer is astonished, noting that the sample has merged with a person and now it has become far more valuable. Without hesitation, the officer raises his gun towards him, but Ichijo fights back, struggling as he exclaims that his body is moving on its own. The second officer fires his weapon, but he retaliates in a horrific display of strength, shoving his hand into the officer's mouth and ripping his jaws clean off, splitting the man in half. Miku, terrified, turns and runs, but Ichijo gives chase. As she sprints past some workers, she warns them about the creature, but Ichijo mercilessly kills them all as he barrels past. Just as he's about to attack Miku, Kenji intervenes, striking him with a rifle. Ichijo falls back and begins crying, questioning why are they trying to kill him. Overwhelmed with emotion, he knocks Kenji to the ground and turns his blame towards Miku, accusing her of bringing the centipede monster to him. Suddenly, the creature with him opens its mouth and starts convulsing violently as the centipede tears itself off his body, killing him. Miku and Kenji are left in shock, breaking down as they blame themselves for all of the deaths that have occurred. A group of officers arrive and secure the sample. Recognizing Miku and Kenji, the officers place them under arrest. However, before they can take further action, the ground begins to tremble. A massive creature emerges from the water, a barnacle-like kaiju with multiple eyes and a kraken-like mouth. The officers panic, questioning why the creature has arrived so early. They contact headquarters reporting a breach at the Daiba site, and receive orders to initiate Operation Case D, or the Spear. As the barnacle kaiju moves towards the city, the officers release Miku and Kenji, preparing for the operation. However, the officers privately acknowledge that the creature's exposure to the public is a significant risk, as they plan to eliminate all eyewitnesses along with the kaiju. Kenji tries to snap Miku out of her despair, but she remains paralyzed with grief. Frustrated, he slaps her and tells her that she must survive to see Akira and Eiji again. The two make their way to the exit of the TV station, where a crowd has gathered. Two workers block the exit, refusing to let anyone leave. Kenji grabs a chair and smashes the barricade, allowing everyone to escape. Outside, Miku's classmates find her and Kenji, panicking as the barnacle kaiju approaches the station. Suddenly, massive walls burst from the ground, crushing Miku's schoolmates and enclosing the kaiju and the city within. The kaiju attacks the wall, but hidden machine gun turrets in the Ferris wheel open fire. In retaliation, the kaiju uses an arm-mounted blaster to destroy the Ferris wheel. Meanwhile, a massive metallic spear is deployed near the kaiju. It is revealed to be an atomic bomb, which detonates, obliterating everything within the walls. A helicopter surveys the aftermath, observing the charred kaiju collapsing to the ground, confirming the mission's success. Unbeknownst to the officers, Kenji and Miku had escaped the blast on a boat. The captain of the boat ferries the survivors to a nearby pier. On the way, they see people attempting to leave via a bridge, but the structure suddenly collapses. The bridge nearly crushes the boat, but the captain floors it just in time to evade the disaster. The collapse wasn't caused by the blast, but the officers, who arrive on a large boat, demanding the survivors to return. The captain refuses, pushing the engine to its limit to escape. The officers open fire with mounted turrets, killing many passengers. Desperate, the captain orders everyone to jump into the ocean as the officers' boat crashes straight into theirs. Tragically, only 6 people survived. The captain, devastated, feels disappointed that he didn't save more lives. Kenji gathers the survivors and recounts what happened in Tachikawa and everything that he knows. The captain emphasizes the importance of returning home to their families. He offers to drive the group with his car, parked near the pier. The scene shifts to Shinjuku, Tokyo, where a homeless man sits on the street, muttering about a monster in the subway. Meanwhile, the group stuck in Shinjuku traffic discusses the barnacle kaiju. Ikuto, sitting in the passenger seat, flirts with another survivor, Midori. The other members include Gen, an older man, and a quiet individual named Mr. Gloomy. Ikuto tries to lighten the mood as Miku thanks Kenji for saving her multiple times. Suddenly, the ground shakes as another colossal kaiju emerges, a grotesque mass of flesh and mix-match body parts. The debris collapses into a massive hole as fighter jets engage the kaiju. Meanwhile, smaller creatures climb out of the hole, attacking civilians. Electric rods rise from the ground, forming a barrier around the city. The group runs towards the subway but is confronted by a giant centipede that attacks a civilian. The centipede then turns its attention to them. Ikuto grabs a brick to fight it, but it smacks his head, knocking him out. Kenji and Gen grab him, carrying him towards the subway, but the centipede moves to strike. Miku steps in between the group and the creature, armed with a brick and ready to sacrifice herself to protect Kenji and the others. However, at the last moment, a woman leaps from a nearby wall and stabs the centipede in the eye with a metal rod. The volume ends as the centipede runs away. The woman turns to the group, revealing herself to be now Shirosaki, as she asks if they're okay. Now Shirosaki turns and asks if Miku Izawa is her name. This triggers a flashback to the helicopter crash, where Shirosaki and Akira survived by hiding in a large case that contained the samples. Amid the wreckage, a wounded centipede monster lay nearby. Shirosaki tried to warn Akira, but he was laying unconscious with a metal pole impaled in his side. Acting quickly, she tore her sleeve, pulled the rod out of his body, and used the fabric to wrap his wound. Shirosaki carried Akira away from the crash to an abandoned house. In the basement, she tended to him as he battled a fever. His condition worsened, and he became so weak he couldn't even drink water. In his dilemma, he whispered Miku's name. Shirosaki promised to reunite him with Miku, dedicating her life to fulfilling his wishes. To hydrate him, she puts water in her mouth and transferred it to him through a kiss. Desperate to save him, she carried him to a truck filled with military personnel and begged them to take him to a hospital. The officers agreed to take Akira on their truck, but insist that she must ride in another vehicle, assuring her that he will receive proper treatment. Although suspicious of their intentions, Shirosaki had no other option. As the trucks drove, the officers discussed an impending battle that was expected to occur much earlier than planned. Suddenly, the ground shook, forcing the truck to stop in Shinjuku. Shirosaki jumped out of the truck and encountered the fleshy kaiju. At that moment is when she saw Miku running past her and recognized her immediately. In the present, Miku asks Shirosaki how she knows her name. Shirosaki explains that she attended Tachikawa High School and that Akira is alive. She shares everything she knows and hands Miku Akira's phone, insisting that Miku should be the one to give it to him. Kenji asks if she has any information about his brother. Shirosaki admits that she knows of him but hasn't seen him since the earthquake. Their conversation is cut short when a monster appears, forcing the group to flee into the underground subway. After running for a while, the group pauses to rest, but soon they see civilians running towards them, screaming warnings about the approaching fleshy kaiju. The kaiju catches and consumes several citizens before turning its attention to the group. As they run, Mr. Gloomy presses a button to close the gate, narrowly preventing the kaiju from reaching them. Shirosaki slides under the gate just in time, while Kenji kicks off one of the creature's tentacles. The station then goes into a lockdown, but Shirosaki suggests heading to exit C7 or C8 to escape the heart of Shinjuku, and possibly get beyond the walls' boundaries. The kaiju catches up, forcing the group to run again. Ikuto tries to flirt with Shirosaki, asking for her number, even as they flee. The kaiju grabs a station worker, dissolving his body and spit out his remains. As the group nears an exit, Kenji notices it's unsafe, but a desperate worker pushes past them and attempts to escape. The worker is electrocuted by the light membrane blocking the exit, his face melting off completely. A piece of the fleshy kaiju transforms into a monstrous dog-like creature. It lunges at the group but is hit by a sign that Miku throws. As the kaiju chases her, Miku leads it towards the exit. The kaiju's head burns as it touches the electric wall, but it regenerates and grows back another head. Kenji catches Miku as she falls down the stairs, and the group splits up, running towards another exit. The kaiju charges headfirst into the electric wall, burning its upper body. Before it can regenerate, a tank appears and blows up the rest of its body. A hidden door in the floor opens, revealing a line of tanks and officers. The officers begin fighting off various creatures, disregarding the safety of remaining citizens. Nearby, a homeless man named Ujie warns officers about a monster that he saw buried underground, but they ignore him and push him aside. A creature suddenly appears behind Ujie, and as the tank prepares to fire, Kenji pushes the man out of the way. Kenji questions him about what he saw, and the man describes a massive eye staring at him from the ground. The man seems disorientated, making it difficult to get more information. Shirosaki convinces him to guide them out of Shinjuku. Despite Ikoto's skepticism, they have no other choice but to trust him. As they run, Midori begins crying, and while Ikoto tries to comfort her, he notices Mr. Gloomy standing next to a dead body and pocketing something. As officers continue battling various kaijus, the group presses on. Miku is knocked down by a mantis-like creature that prepares to attack. Shirosaki grabs a pole and bravely fights off the mantis, delivering a final blow with a metal plate. The group reaches safety, impressed by Shirosaki's combat skills, though she admits that she doesn't know how she managed it. They ask Ujie for the way out, and he tells them that they need to head to the west exit. Unfortunately, the opposite direction of where they're heading. Meanwhile, the fleshy kaiju wreaks havoc, engaging officers in combat as it moves through the city. The volume ends with the kaiju reaching a massive building where officers prepare to activate Black Rain. The commanding officer orders everyone to take their positions. Rows of officers armed with rocket launchers fill every floor of the building. As the kaiju attacks, the command is given, and a barrage of rockets is launched, obliterating the kaiju and bringing an end to its reign of destruction. As the kaiju's body spreads throughout the city, the officers celebrate another victory in the ongoing human vs. kaiju war. Yuji tells the group that he will get them out of Shinjuku, explaining that a long time ago, he was in charge of the subway construction site. While digging below the west exit, he saw something on the ground, a massive eyeball staring back at him. Shortly afterward, everyone working on the project was fired, and Shirosaki speculates that the government may have known something about the monsters all along. The group runs through the destroyed city and heads under a bridge. However, they notice something lurking there, which suddenly attacks Midori. The fleshy monster is still alive and it has captured her. The monster attacks again from the opposite side, forcing the group to flee. Ikuto, unwilling to leave her behind, rushes towards the monster. Shirosaki chases after him and grabs a fallen rifle. Ikuto climbs on top of the monster trying to free Midori, but his tentacles sprout out, aiming to attack him. Shirosaki begins shooting the tentacles, providing Ikuto enough time to release Midori. Ikuto thanks Shirosaki, who tells him that they must hurry to the Tokyo government building. Meanwhile, at the government building, the officers prepare to leave, but the scattered flesh from the kaiju begins converging in front of the building, reforming into the colossal monster. In Daiba, scientists are collecting samples from the burnt barnacle monster, when it suddenly wakes from its slumber. The creature stands and blasts its way out of the wall, stepping into the city and heading towards the next area. Back in Shinjuku, Midori regains consciousness, and Ikuto expresses relief that she is alive. He tells her that Shirosaki saved her, but she insists that it was Ikuto who saved her. As they talk, the group realizes that the fleshy kaiju has grown 10 times larger. The officers fire another round of Black Rain, but the kaiju is unfazed. The government building launches wires to restrain the monster and a fog begins to form beneath it. The officers announce that the fog has been invoked, signifying that the headquarters had abandoned Shinjuku. The officers call for an evacuation as Shinjuku is set for annihilation. A building transforms into a rocket and launches straight into the air, attempting to escape the destruction. However, the kaiju breaks free from its restraints and destroys the government building, killing all of the officers inside. The building turned rocket crashes down and explodes on the kaiju. Elsewhere, 2 officers battle large centipede monsters when their body starts convulsing, blood pouring from their mouths and eyes. They collapse and die, with the centipedes also dying shortly after. The fog spreads rapidly, killing nearly everyone and everything in the city. As the fog approaches the group, Shirosaki urges them to run away. Near the underground entrance, a monster appears, but Shirosaki shoots it in the foot, causing it to fall and die from inhaling the fog. The group makes it inside but discovers it's a dead end. As the fog creeps closer, Ujie reveals a small latch and tells them to get inside. Shirosaki is the last to enter, closing the latch just before the fog reaches them. Outside, the fog envelops the entire city, melting the fleshy kaiju in the process. Inside, the group finds themselves on an abandoned subway track where Ujie had set up a makeshift home. He notes that the monster buried there is now gone. Midori screams as her flashlight reveals a pile of dead bodies. Ujie claims that he doesn't know how those bodies got there. Mr. Gloomy approaches the corpses and begins looting them for money. Jen warns him about karma, saying looting is immoral, but Mr. Gloomy dismisses the concerns. He claims that it's the right thing to do since the dead have no use for it. Lashing out, Mr. Gloomy admits that he's only with the group to increase his chances of survival, declaring that he'll let everyone else die before he does. With a deranged look, he asks if he's wrong. Suddenly, something bites into his head and multiple unknown creatures start feeding on his corpse. The creatures are revealed to be a giant cockroach with 6 maggot-like eyes. Shirosaki orders the group to follow her as more cockroaches appear, opening up their bodies to shove corpses inside and turn them into giant meatballs. The cockroach notice the group and begin chasing them. Yujiya tries to retrieve something from his tent, but a cockroach charges in, knocking over a lantern and setting the area on fire. Shirosaki shoots some of the cockroaches while the others flee. However, they encounter an obstacle, a wall of human meatballs. Shirosaki tells everyone to climb it, but Midori falls onto the tracks, trapping herself in it as she is surrounded by cockroaches. Ikuto makes a torch using his shirt to scare the cockroaches away. He helps Midori up and promises to get her out quickly. As they climb, a cockroach bites Ikuto's leg. He checks on Midori and sees that there are 3 cockroaches standing behind her. Kenji, having reached the other side of the wall, calls out to Ikuto, but he tells him to go on without him. Injured and carrying Midori, Ikuto insists that they escape as the flames rage. Kenji tries to help, but Ikuto screams at him to leave, vowing to kill the cockroaches himself. Shirosaki agrees that they need to move on, and Kenji reluctantly complies. Kenji shouts that he'll meet him on the other side. As the group departs, Ikuto cradles Midori, telling her that once they've escaped, they should go on their first date. It's revealed, however, that Ikuto is holding her headless body as cockroaches devour him piece by piece. At another train station, Shirosaki opens up a latch to the surface. The volume ends with the group emerging alive in a new city, preparing for the beginning of the final arc. Creature in the second half of the story was still really enjoyable. I love seeing another perspective of the giant kaiju incident. It's like seeing the Cloverfield movie, but in the perspective of people from New Jersey. I like watching the perspective of Miku and Kenji, but I don't really care about the other characters that we meet. They seem like copy and pasted characters of the last part, and we didn't get to see them as much to really care about them. I also don't really like this officer dude. He has a ton of scenes, but he's not really an interesting character or villain. Like, we already have a bunch of monsters. We don't need a boring human villain on top of that. Plus, his scenes were dragged on a lot, and it wasn't really important to the plot at all. That's why I didn't really mention most of his scenes. But everything else was really good. I like that the military is trying their best to actually fight the kaijus, and I also really like that the kaijus are attacking different cities in Tokyo. I hope we see attacks in not just Tokyo, but all over Japan or even the entire world. I also really like all of the designs of the kaijus. I like the fact that Shirosaki and Akira survived. I also really like the world building when it comes to the government knowing about the kaijus before they arrived, and also what they're doing to keep control of the civilians. A lot of people don't like this series due to how it ends, and sadly, I got spoiled why they don't like it. But I've enjoyed these past 8 volumes so far, and I'm both worried and pretty excited to see what happens next. The new group of survivors have just escaped Shinjuku. No one outside knows what's really going on, but the group must keep moving forward and find the military base where Akira is being held. Suddenly, Shirosaki faints and collapses to the ground. Kenji rushes to pick her up, and Miku suggests that they take her to the hotel where she was staying during her school trip. They head over, settle in, and rest for the night. The next morning, Shirosaki is still in a deep sleep. As they watch TV, the channel suddenly switches to an important announcement from the Minister of Japan himself. He declares that Japan is under attack by special giant kaijus. He urges citizens to remain calm if a kaiju appears in their city, assuring them that preparations are in place. This is the first time they have ever addressed the kaiju situation before. Before the group can process the news, the TV abruptly shuts off. The traffic lights go dark and all cell phone service is lost. The ground begins to shake violently. They rush to the window just in time to see not one, not two, but 3 massive kaijus bursting out from underground. A monstrous hybrid of a bird and a lizard, a massive squid, and a towering cactus-like creature. The Tokyo Stadium launches a barrage of missiles at the kaijus, but the attacks have no effect. As panic spreads amongst the citizens, the kaiju suddenly turn on each other, viciously battling with their abilities and razor-sharp claws. The group tries to retreat, but Shirosaki remains unresponsive. They attempt to carry her, but Gen strains his back and has to stop. Miku and Kenji take over, struggling to lift her until the bird kaiju spots them through the hotel window. The creature lunges towards them, ready to attack, when out of nowhere, 3 shadowy figures leap in and slash through the bird's kaiju's eye and skull, taking it down instantly. As the dust settles, the figures are revealed to be advanced walking mech suits armed with blades, sort of like Fallout mechs. A military helicopter hovers above, announcing that the prototypes are a success. Meanwhile, back in Shinjuku, the barnacle-like kaiju roams the streets, until it is ambushed by the fleshy kaiju. A nearby military squad tracking the barnacle kaiju discuss how both the spear and the fog techniques have failed. Now their last hope lies in Operation Fuse to eliminate the kaiju threat. As the group exits the hotel, they find the entire city swarming with smaller kaijus, giant centipedes, mantises, and cockroaches. An enormous centipede lunges at the old man, but one of the mechs slices its head off. The three mechs then move swiftly through the city, cutting down all of the smaller kaijus with ease. A military helicopter lands and orders them to retreat, and the mechs comply, ignoring the citizens being slaughtered behind them. Suddenly, they all stop. Across the city, the barnacle kaiju has fused with the fleshy kaiju, forming a grotesque, nightmarish monstrosity. Without warning, the mechs go rogue, charging straight at the massive creature. All three scale its towering body, trying to reach its head. The kaiju retaliates though, unleashing devastating arm blasters and bursts of fire breath. The mechs dodge the attack, slicing away chunks of flesh until they manage to plant 3 small explosive devices on its face. Moments later, the explosives detonate, obliterating the kaiju's head. 4 giant kaijus have been taken down by just 3 prototype mechs. As the military officer approaches the mechs, he orders them to leave. But without hesitation, one of the mechs slices the officer's head clean off. Chaos erupts as the mechs go completely haywire, turning against the civilians and slaughtering them indiscriminately. One of the mechs charges at the group, its blade swinging straight for Shirosaki, only to stop mid-attack. The volume ends as the mech trembles, seemingly fighting against itself, desperately trying to call out to Shirosaki. The mech struggles to call out to Shirosaki, but just as it prepares to launch another attack, Kenji yanks her out of the way. They scramble to safety until another mech suddenly appears and charges straight at them. Before it could strike, the first mech jumps in between, taking the blow head on. Its helmet begins chipping in the process, revealing a glimpse of the person inside. A distorted voice comes from the damaged mech. It says that it misses Shirosaki. Then, to everyone's shock, the pilot is revealed to be none other than Mitsuru, the pedophilic teacher from the first video. But he's no longer just human. He's been fused with a mantis kaiju. With a twisted grin, he tells Shirosaki how thrilled he is to be reunited with her before turning to fight the attacking mech. As the battle rages on, Shirosaki quickly fills in the group on who Mitsuru is. Meanwhile, he slices through one of the enemies' mechs and smashes the skull of the other. However, the mantis kaiju inside him tries to seize control of his body. Shirosaki cautiously steps forward and asks what happened to him. Mitsuru recounts his experience. As he was falling through the air, the mantis kaiju merged with him, allowing him to land safely. The next thing he remembers is waking up in restraints aboard a military helicopter, flying past a towering structure. Kenji immediately recognizes it. It could be the Tokyo Skytree. He suggests that the military's headquarters might just be there. With that in mind, the group decides to head towards the tower. They leave without Mitsuru, but traveling by train or car isn't an option. As they try to figure out a plan, they suddenly get surrounded by a swarm of giant cockroaches. Before they can react, Mitsuru hurls a car at the creatures and begins slicing them apart with ease. Amid the chaos, there's a brief, humorous cameo from the series' creators before things escalate yet again. Multiple gigantic kaijus emerge, forcing the group to make a run for it. Just as they prepare to leave, Shirosaki turns back and asks Mitsuru to come with them. He smirks and he tells her that she didn't even have to ask. Gen takes the lead, guiding them towards his boat. He plans to travel via the river to avoid the kaiju on land. They hop on and quickly take off, gliding through the water. Just as it seems they're finally safe, a massive centipede kaiju emerges. Mitsuru then leaps into action, slicing it clean in half. The group exhales in relief, until the boat suddenly jolts to a stop. Without warning, a massive tentacle bursts out of the water, revealing a colossal kraken-like kaiju lurking beneath them. As it lunges, Mitsuru engages in battle. But before he can land a blow, the chip implanted in the back of his neck activates, sending painful shocks throughout his body. Paralyzed, he is easily overpowered as the kaiju thrashes him around. Shirosaki rushes forward and drags him back into the boat as Gen makes a sharp turn into a dark tunnel, taking a shortcut. The group emerges onto the Sumida River, which runs right next to the Tokyo Skytree. Just when they think they've escaped, the Kraken bursts out of the water once again, revealing that the creature attacking them earlier was merely only one of its tentacles. The massive tentacles lash out, striking the boat as they approach the Skytree. Desperate, Shirosaki turns to Mitsuru and begs him to save them. Battling against the chip's control and the mantis trying to overtake his mind, Mitsuru breaks free. Fueled by his obsession with Shirosaki, he charges at the Kraken, managing to blow a big chunk of his face. But even with all of his strength, the kaiju still overpowers him. Just as Mitsuru is about to be killed, 4 helicopters fly in, dropping a mysterious spear onto the Kraken. The spear cracks open, revealing a massive mech infused with a centipede kaiju. With deadly precision, it obliterates the Kraken, slicing it apart and blasting it with a centipede laser arm. The mech then reaches down and grabs Mitsuru, carrying him out of the water and into a hidden hatch onto the dock. As the group watches in shock, a military boat approaches, armed soldiers aiming their guns at them, ready to open fire until a scientist steps forward and orders them to stand down. He surveys the group before asking, "Is there someone named Shirosaki in your party?" Shirosaki consciously steps forward. The scientists explain that Mitsuru, now designated as Fuse 3, is a fusion of a human and a kaiju. Typically, such fusions result in the human losing control to the kaiju. However, Mitsuru was different. Even before undergoing treatment, he kept repeating the same phrase, "I need to save Shirosaki." The scientists describe him as an extraordinary specimen, one they had tried to control but ultimately failed to contain. That is, until today. When Shirosaki pleaded for Mitsuru to kill the Kraken, he responded instantly. The scientist looks at her and intently asks, "What did you do to Fuse 3? Kenji steps in, refusing to answer, but Shirosaki steps up, saying that she and her friends are Mitsuru's students. If they want him to cooperate, he'll only respond to their voices. She then makes a bold request and asks to take them to their headquarters. The scientists turn to Jen and the old man, questioning whether they have any connection to Mitsuru. Without hesitation, Shirosaki claims that they don't. It's unclear if they're trying to keep him out of trouble or if she's just signed their death sentence. The volume ends with the scientists agreeing to take Shirosaki, Kenji, and Miku aboard the military ship, setting course for the headquarters. Shirosaki, Kenji, and Miku bid an emotional farewell to Jen and the old man before boarding the military ship. As they approach a hidden gate, the entrance to the military headquarters is revealed. The three quietly whisper among themselves, acknowledging that their true objective is to find Akira. However, they realize that it may be difficult as the scientists in charge might not allow them to move freely. Upon arrival, they discovered that the headquarters is located directly beneath the Tokyo Skytree. The scientist introduces himself as Sayotome, the head researcher of the Special Creature Disaster Control Headquarters. As they ascend in the elevator, Shirosaki asks about the true nature of the kaijus, but Sayotome tells her that everything will be revealed in due time. The group arrives at the command center, where they are given a clear view of the massive, tall-type kaijus surrounding the Skytree. The headquarters activates a powerful pulse wall around the perimeter, an even stronger version of the one previously used in Shinjuku. But Sayotome admits that this is just merely a stalling tactic. With 300 tall types approaching the Skytree, the world is on the brink of destruction. To prevent the end of the world, the military created Fuse 3, Mitsuru. However, he's not the only one. An entire army of over 100 fusions, collectively known as the Fuse series, was developed. Initially, these fusions were artificially engineered in laboratories by injecting kaiju DNA into humans. However, naturally occurring fusions between humans and kaiju provide to be exponentially stronger. The isolation of entire cities was, in reality, a ploy to create more natural fusions, an unsettling revelation that enrages Kenji. Sayotome then leads the group downstairs to show them why they needed Fuse 3. In the basement of the headquarters, they come face to face with a tall type kaiju. Sayotome reveals his plan. He wants Mitsuru to fuse with this creature, hoping that it will create the final fusion, one powerful enough to put an end to the war between humans and kaiju. A latch opens, revealing Mitsuru unconscious. Sayotome instructs Shirosaki to wake him up so they can initiate the fusion process. Shirosaki approaches Mitsuru and whispers in his ear, telling him he must wake up to save the world. However, she also mentions that the key to survival is Akira. Mitsuru jolts awake in a furious rage, demanding to know where Akira is. Shirosaki quickly explains that Akira is another one of his students. He was injured during the Shinjuku incident and taken to a military base. However, they need Akira in order to get Mitsuru to comply. Sayotome appears confused, claiming that he has no knowledge of an Akira. However, if Akira was indeed taken to a military base, then it is highly likely that he was already forcibly fused. That was all Shirosaki needed to hear. She immediately tells Miku and Kenji to follow her and instructs Mitsuru to break down the door. Before he can hack though, a massive mech, Fuse 4, emerges blocking their path. Meanwhile, outside, one of the tall types breaches the post wall, but it is swiftly intercepted by another fusion. The battle between the Fuse series and the tall types has just begun. Inside the headquarters, Mitsuru engages in combat with Fuse 4. He gains the upper hand, eventually blasting off Mitsuru's arm. Despite this, Mitsuru manages to seize Fuse 4's arm and fires a blast at his opponent's helmet, shattering it. As the fog disperses, the true identity of Fuse 4 is revealed. Eiji, Kenji's brother, merged with a centipede monster. The fight rages on as Kenji and Miku break down in tears, desperately trying to communicate with Eiji. Ultimately though, he gains the upper hand and is moments away from finishing Mitsuru. However, before he can deliver the final blow, his chip activates, zapping him unconscious. It was Sayotome who had triggered the emergency shutdown sequence, stopping the fight. Furious, Kenji demands answers about what happened to his brother. Sayotome states that he was forcibly merged with a centipede monster in Tachikawa. However, he refused to provide further details. Instead, he says that both Fuse 3 and 4 are essential, as they are his two strongest fusions. Kenji demands that Sayotome fix his brother. Sayotome agrees, and the floor beneath Mitsuru and Eiji opens, sending them into another chamber. He then allows the group to observe the surgical process themselves. Arriving in the medical facility, Kenji is eager to check on his brother, but Sayotome tells him that Eiji is in a separate room. For now, they must focus on replacing Mitsuru's missing arm. The group is led into a room filled with test tubes containing grotesque mutated fusions. As Sayotome scans each specimen, searching for a compatible match, Shirosaki approaches one particular test tube and freezes. Inside the chamber, submerged in liquid, is Akira. Kenji and Miku immediately rush to the test tube, calling out to him in distress. Shirosaki, however, notices something unusual, and Akira's body remains completely unchanged. This gives her hope that he might still be okay. Sayotome then explains that on rare occasions, subjects reject the fusion process entirely. However, it is extremely uncommon for there to be no physical transformation whatsoever. Shirosaki demands that they release Akira immediately, but Sayotome refuses. He insists that Akira is still a potential fuse and, therefore, he must remain contained. Outside, the battle between the Fuse series and the Tall types continue, growing more intense by the second. Meanwhile, Mitsuru's surgery is successfully completed. Shirosaki turns to Sayotome and asks what happened if the sky tree were to collapse. Sayotome's response is grim. The fall of the sky tree would mark the true end. Beneath the sky tree lies the most powerful kaiju of them all, so massive that it stretches from Tokyo to Chiba. It is the king of the kaijus, a being so powerful that even the tall types pale in comparison. The enormous eyeball that they previously saw at the bottom of the hole, that was merely a part of its body. The sky tree is directly connected to its brain, so if it falls, the king of the kaiju will awaken, bringing about the end of the world. The volume concludes with Akira regaining consciousness inside his pod. Realizing that he is submerged and drowning, he panics and begins pounding against the glass. Sayotome coldly assures them that the containment pod is unbreakable. It is made out of bulletproof glass. But then, cracks begin to form, and with a final powerful strike, Akira shatters the test tube. Akira wakes up from being inside the test tube, and Shirosaki immediately runs up to him, embracing him tightly. He looks over and he sees Miku, and they share an emotional reunion. Shirosaki quickly fills Akira in on everything that he missed, while Sayotome explains what he did to Eiji and the dire situation unfolding outside. Just then, a doctor rushes into the room, reporting that Fuse 4 is acting irrational. Eiji is rampaging in the room, and then he spots the group. His gaze locks onto Miku, and in a fit of uncontrollable aggression, he tries to step on her. But Akira intervenes just in time, saving her. Akira shouts at Eiji, insisting that he will never try to hurt Miku. It seems as though he's about to attack again, but instead, he suddenly strikes himself. Regaining his consciousness, Eiji appears disorientated and only remembers the earthquake. Sayatome explains that Eiji's primary objective is to fight the kaijus outside and protect the sky tree. Otherwise, everyone that he cares about will die. The group desperately tries to talk him out of it, but Eiji, determined to end this nightmare and save his friends, refuses to stand down. Without hesitation, he rushes out onto the battlefield. Eiji fights vigilantly, managing to kill several kaijus. However, he soon finds himself overwhelmed, caught in the grasp of a powerful kaiju, which rips his arm clean off. Just as he is about to be devoured, his mech suit activates its self-destruct mode. In a final act of defiance, Eiji detonates the suit, obliterating the kaiju's head in the explosion. The group watches in horror as Eiji perishes before their eyes. Meanwhile, preparations for the launch of the final fuse are complete. Overcome with rage, Akira breaks down the door and storms towards Sayatome, confronting him for turning Eiji into a monster. It is revealed that Sayatome himself has also merged with a kaiju. He unveils his grotesque true form, seizing Akira by the throat. Sayatome tells Akira that they are alike, and rather than fighting against them, he urges Akira to fight alongside him. Before Akira can respond, the entire building begins to shake violently. The third defense wall is being breached. At that moment, a latch opens, and Mitsuru steps forward, now fused with the tall type kaiju. Sayatome tells Mitsuru that his duty is to protect the sky tree, but Mitsuru declares that his only goal is to establish a kingdom with his queen. Sayatome argues that Mitsuru won't have a kingdom if his entire country is destroyed. After a brief moment of consideration, Mitsuru complies, unleashing his full power and annihilating the kaijus attempting to breach the city. Sayatome then invites the group to watch the battle unfold from premium seats. While Akira and Kenji want nothing to do with him, Shirosaki accepts on their behalf, asking if they will be watching from the air. The group boards a helicopter and ascends to the skies above the battlefield. From above, they witness the gruesome battle below. Half of the Fuse series soldiers are being devoured, while Mitsuru relentlessly slaughters multiple tall-type kaijus. As the battle rages on, Akira suddenly feels an intense, searing pain emanating from his wound. To his horror, an eyeball emerges from the wound, followed by a fleshy kaiju that bursts out, rapidly overtaking his body. The kaiju-possessed Akira lashes out, attempting to attack Shirosaki. However, before he can strike, Sayatome intervenes, preparing to fight him. Despite Sayatome's strength, Akira easily overpowers him, pinning him to the ground. With Sayatome at his mercy, Akira demands that ensure the safety of his friends in exchange for his life. Sayatome agrees to his terms, and both of them revert back to their human forms. On the battlefield, walls 3 and 6 collapse under the onslaught. However, Mitsuru, having reached the height of his power, annihilates the remaining 100 tall type kaijus, securing a temporary victory. Sayatome contacts Mitsuru, informing him that it's all over. They have successfully prevented the king of the kaijus from awakening. But Mitsuru, intrigued, asks Sayatome if this king is truly strong. Sayatome responds gravely, explaining that the king is beyond strong. He is the ultimate force of destruction, which is why he reigns as king. Hearing this, Mitsuru makes his way towards the sky tree, standing on top its base. He looks up at the towering structure and declares that there could only be one king. Without hesitation, Mitsuru plunges his hands into the foundation and with unimaginable strength rips the sky tree off the ground. The volume ends with the final scene shifting to Mount Fuji, where the earth trembles violently. The entire mountain erupts, crumbling into destruction as the king of the kaiju awakens. A massive hand erupts from Mount Fuji as Sayatome seamlessly declares that this is the end of Japan. A colossal head begins to rise from the ground, and Mitsuru charges towards it, determined to decide the true king of this world. Sayatome warns that Mitsuru can't defeat the king alone, then turns to Akira, telling him that he must stay alive. Without hesitation, he jumps out of the helicopter, making his way towards an opening leading to headquarters. Suddenly, a tall type kaiju appears and fuses with Sayotome. Meanwhile, Mitsuru struggles to land an effective hit on the king. Just then, Sayotome joins him in battle. However, Mitsuru stubbornly refuses any help. He wants the king all to himself. Unbeknownst to him, the head he has been attacking is only a small fragment of the king. The ground begins to tremble violently and the body parts start spawning from beneath the earth. Then in a terrifying display of power, the king's entire body erupts from the ground, completely obliterating all of Tokyo. Aboard the helicopter, Akira prepares to transform and join the fight, but Shirosaki stops him, insisting that they must trust Sayotome. On the battlefield, Mitsuru arrives, carrying the Tokyo Sky Tree. He turns to Sayotome and asks to lead him to the core. They sprint towards their target, but enormous hands descend from the sky to attack them. The two realize that they can't fight back. The king's body fluids are hotter than magma, making direct attacks impossible. Forced to evade, they skillfully dodge the relentless onslaught. Reaching the back of the king's massive body, they finally locate the core. Mitsuru charges forward, but before he can reach it, the king's molten body fluids splatter onto him. At the last second, Sayotome shields him from the searing heat, allowing him to press on. However, just as Mitsuru was about to plant the tower into the core, the king's tail lunges at him, biting down and dragging him away. The tail then swallows Mitsuru whole, and all hope seems to be lost. Back in the helicopter, giant tentacles start attacking it, coiling around the aircraft as the king's tail prepares to devour them. Desperate, Shirosaki prays for Mitsuru to save them. At that moment, a massive blade slices through the tail from the inside. Mitsuru bursts from the tail's mouth, his body severely burned but his spirit unbroken. With unwavering determination, he leaps from the tail and transforms his arm blade into a drill. As he prepares for his final act, memories of his life with Shirosaki flood his mind. Visions of a future where they are married and have a child together. With a final decisive strike, Mitsuru plunges into the core, successfully freezing the king. Shirosaki, overcome with emotion, vows that she will never forget him. 5 years later, two kids are being chased by a massive centipede. Just as it seems that they are doomed, a future Kenji arrives, swiftly eliminating the target. He conducts a test on the children, and only one of them receives a positive result. Without hesitation, Kenji takes the selected kid to his helicopter, leaving the other one behind with a grim command: survive out there, no matter what. Kenji has now evolved, and then he explains that the purpose of the test is to find new fuse candidates, and hopefully locate more evolves. A transmission comes in from the future Shirosaki, summoning them to an emergency meeting. 5 years ago, after the king was frozen, Tokyo was completely destroyed. The survivors relocated to Hokkaido, renaming it the island. However, the situation remains dire. Most wealthy and political figures have abandoned the island, leading to severe crisis in food supply, energy, and infrastructure. At the emergency meeting, Akira, now the leader of the survivors, bring the remaining evolves to Sayotome. An urgent mission awaits them. Hundreds of tall type kaijus are approaching the king's core, attempting to awaken him. The evolves are set to deploy in 1 hour. Before the mission, Akira meets privately with Shirosaki. She expresses her gratitude for everything that he has done and urges him to visit Miku before he leaves. At the military base's cafeteria, Akira finds Miku working. He tells her that this may be his last mission, and before he dies, he wants to confess his feelings to her. But before he can say another word, Miku slaps him. She coldly tells him that people's hearts change, and that there is already someone in his heart, hinting at Shirosaki. As Akira leaves, Kenji approaches Miku, casually asking for food. An hour later, the evolves launch their assault against the king's core, battling wave after wave of tall type kaijus. By the end of the fight, only 4 out of the original 43 remain. However, despite the staggering losses, the mission is a success. Just as the survivors begin to process their victory, something catches the attention of both Akira and Kenji. A realization dawns upon them, a crushing truth that shatters all of their efforts. Everything that they fought for was for nothing. This is truly the end of the world. In the final moments, Akira calls to Shirosaki, admitting that he wants to spend the rest of his life with her. Shirosaki, her eyes full of emotion, responds that she feels the same way. As the scene fades, the perspective shifts to outer space. There, surrounding the Earth, are multiple kaijus, each as colossal as the king. Akira and Kenji stand prepared, ready for the battle that will decide the fate of the world. And thus, the first part of the series comes to a close. This is definitely the part of the series where everything that I liked in the first two videos just get thrown out the way. I really liked the king stuff. I still like the characters, the fights, and just the kaijus themselves. I liked the Power Ranger stuff in the beginning. The kaiju mixing with humans is different, especially in a Power Ranger scenario, but I still don't entirely like it. It was the thing that I got spoiled in the comments of the first video, so screw you guys that comment spoilers without any warnings. Again though, I didn't entirely like it, but it was better than what I imagined. I like the aspect that these characters are just regular people trying their hardest to survive in an apocalypse scenario, but with the Power Ranger stuff, it just throws that whole thing out of the window. If it was just the military guys or the main characters using weapons and mechs made out of kaiju materials like Tokyo Ghoul, I think that would have been really cool instead of just them gaining superpowers. Another thing I hated about this is the return of Mitsuru. I hated this character. I thought he was a psychotic creep in the beginning, and he's even creepier and weirder now by trying to make an entire kingdom for himself and a high schooler. It's even worse that Shirosaki just completely ignores it because he's helping them, but remember, he was the only reason why Tokyo was completely destroyed. And now they have a whole crisis on the island when all of this could have just been prevented if he just didn't pull that sky tree and awaken the king. And another thing, I think that the 5-year later thing should have been the real ending, except it should have been just Akira trying to rebuild society after the kaiju invasion instead of just part 1 to a part 2 coming later. Sure, it sounds cool of like an outer space mega kaiju invasion, but like, I would have just preferred it to be the group of characters trying to rebuild society after all of the kaijus are gone. I'm not mad, but I'm also not very happy at this series and the way that it's going, but I will say that my excitement for this series has gone down by a lot. Volume 14 begins with news of another murder tied to an ongoing investigation. A mother and father warned their daughter, Mio Takashiro, to be very careful on her way to school. Takashiro is the last name of Akira, so it's safe to assume that Mio could be the daughter of Akira and Shirosaki, though we don't know the exact timeline of events. At school, students talk about the recent string of murders. A group of boys start listing off the hottest girls in class, naming a certain girl, Kanade, as number 1. However, a boy named Takuto objects, insisting that Mio should be number 1. We don't know yet who Takuto's parents are, but it's likely that he's the child of Kenji and Miku. Again, we don't know yet though. Takuto constantly tries to get Mio's attention, but is always ignored. Later at lunch, Takuto notices Mio not eating her hamburger steak and assumes she's vegetarian. He asks if he can have it, but Mio warns him not to eat it. Takuto responds that everyone loves it, and when he turns around, he sees everyone devouring the food in a strangely sinister way. Kanade, feeling sick after eating, leaves school early, and so does Miu. Rumors begin to spread. People say Miu lives in a suspicious house in the woods. After school, the group of boys decide to bring food to Kanade's house. When they arrive, they find her outside her neighbor's home, claiming that she's heard screaming. The boys enter the neighbor's house and discovers 2 brutally mutilated bodies in the kitchen. Takuto watches as Miu runs out of the back door while his friends call the police. Miu returns home where she finds her father holding a butcher knife. He tells her to help him and her mother. The next day, Miu doesn't show up to school. The students begin gossiping, now saying that Miu is the serial killer responsible for the murders. While everyone slanders her, Takuto defends her, insisting that she's not capable of such violence. He explains that she used to be very kind until her brother died. At that moment, Miu appears behind them. He tells her that he believes in her, and she coldly replies, "There isn't a single thing to believe in." Later that day, Takuto finds Miu's house. While exploring, he knocks over a trash can, guts and flesh spilling out. Suddenly, Kanade appears, saying that she's worried about Miu. The two peek through a window and see Miu standing over her parents' dead bodies, holding a butcher knife. She looks over and they quickly duck to avoid being seen. 3 days pass and Miu still hasn't returned to school. Takuto and Kanade revisit her house and find the door wide open. Inside they discover a giant vault door. As they step through and search for Miu, the door shuts behind them, Miu watching them through surveillance monitors. Takuto and Kanade explore the building and enter a foul-smelling dark room filled with animal pens containing chained centipede kaijus. The creatures have nails driven through their eyes. They see 2 of them eating the severed heads of Miu's parents. Peeking into another room, they see 2 people butchering the kaiju and dumping them into trash cans. However, it's Miu's parents. The father had previously warned Miu that normal people shouldn't see this, and now sends 3 centipedes after them. As they flee through the house, Miu watches from afar. Something begins to emerge from her leg. Takuto and Kanade hit a dead end. A centipede jumps from the ceiling towards Takuto, but Kanade shoves him aside and is bitten instead. Takuto slashes the creature and drags Kanade to a generator room. Kanade reveals her wound and begs Takuto to leave her behind. She makes a final request, leaning in to kiss him, when a giant stinger bursts through the room, nearly impaling her. It's revealed that it came from Miu's mutated leg. Miu continues attacking while Takuto tries desperately to reason with her. They flee again only to run into Miu's parents, who repeat the exact same line as before. Confused, Takuto looks behind them and sees a giant test tube filled with centipede monsters. They escape into a hallway only to be confronted by Miu. She tries to stab Kanade, but Takuto jumps in front of her. She hesitates, then smacks him aside and moves to kill Kanade. Suddenly, 3 centipede monsters begin attacking Miu, giving Takuto and Kanade time to escape. They find a room covered in photos of Miu's dead brother, Naoki. Kanade enters the room, revealing that Naoki once saved her life when she was on the brink of death. Then, Miu bursts in. She tells Takuto that ever since Naoki's death, she's put up a picture of him every day, but that today, it ends. She reveals that her father used to hunt serial killers, and that one day, she and Naoki secretly followed him. During that hunt, their father was attacked, and Naoki was killed by the target. Her father had told Miu the target escaped but was gravely injured. Miu saw someone approach Naoki asking for his flesh and blood before killing him. In the present, Kanade turns to Takuto and asks for his flesh and blood, mutating into a giant kaiju. She attacks, but Miu intervenes and a brutal fight begins. Miu accuses Kanade of being her brother's killer, having recognized the scar on her body, the same scar that her father described from that day. Miu explains that Kanade was the one who murdered her neighbor and that Miu had been investigating the scene and secretly stalking Kanade for months. The fight escalates. Kanade gains the upper hand, but Takuto stabs her wound, and Miu wraps her mutated leg around Kanade, finally killing her. With Naoki's killer dead, Miu says goodbye to Takuto. The next day, Miu's parents send Miu off to school. While walking through the forest, she's approached by Takuto, who correctly suspects that she's planning to run away. Takuto begs to know everything. Miu takes him to the secret hideout of Cluster 7, which leads to the outside world. She reveals that everyone in Cluster 7 is brainwashed, believing the underground facility is the real world, when in reality, it's just an underground city built by the government. To prevent a food crisis, the government began experimenting with centipedes as a food source, using the residents of Cluster 7 as lab rats. All the food served in school, including the hamburger steak, was centipede meat. Miu's family was responsible for managing this entire operation. Research revealed that those who became addicted to the meat eventually craved human flesh, mutating into variants. Her father's mission was to eliminate these variants. Miu also reveals that her father was an evolve and had trained her, and that training helped her avenge Naoki. So I think it's right now safe to assume that her father is 100% Akira. I mean, Akira was an evolve, they have the same last name, so we're gonna assume that her father is Akira, which also means that her mother is Shirosaki, which, nice. As she's about to leave, Takuto asks to come with her. He confesses his love, and the two take an elevator to the surface. As they rise, Takuto starts acting strange. He becomes excited, saying that no one above eats centipede meat, and that there must be plenty of human meat available. It's then revealed that Takuto is a kaiju, fully mutated. He confesses that he was starving the day he visited Miu's home, and that he murdered her parents. He made it look like she did it and admits to being behind all the town's murders. Before he can devour her, Miu, crying, says goodbye and slices him in half. We flash back to the day after Naoki's death. Miu returning home to see Akira alive, and her parents completely ignoring Naoki's death. 2 new replacements had arrived, but there was no replacement for Naoki. Miu concludes that the outside world sent those replacements, and she is determined to reach it, to bring her brother back to life. The volume ends with Miu stepping out into the outside world, revealing a desolate, destroyed Osaka. Now there is still a ton of unanswered questions and endless speculation. My main theory is that Akira and Kenji didn't survive the universe-destroying battle and were instead brought back to life by the mad scientist Sayotome. It does fit his character as like the deranged genius, but the big question here is how far into the future is this? And has Sayotome made himself immortal to gain over the control over the entire government or even the entire world? I don't know, but let's continue on. Miu walks around Osaka wondering what happened to the surface. Suddenly, a giant centipede monster appears. Miu tries to fight back, but her attacks are useless. She manages to blind the centipede and escape, but as the ground begins to rumble, a tall type kaiju appears. Stunned by everything that she has seen, Miu runs away and heads straight to a subway station, sliding down into it just before it collapses. At the station, she looks around, trying to understand why the surface is so abandoned, and why gigantic versions of the centipede food source are just roaming around freely. She spots a human and tries to talk to them, but it turns out to be a variant. It attacks her, but she quickly takes it down. Suddenly, more variants appear and she tries to flee. One of them grabs her by the leg and slams her to the ground, while others begin to surround her. Just as all hope seems lost, a group of survivors arrive and take down all the variants. They bring Miu to their secret hideout. Once there, the group reveals themselves to be humans and asks who she is. Miu begins explaining everything about Cluster 7, leaving out only the details of the experiments and her powers. The group can hardly believe it and express that they wish that they were there, instead of living on the surface. They explain that 30 years ago, giant kaijus began erupting from the ground. Humanity tried to resist, but 5 years later, they lost at what they called the final battle, and the kaiju completely took over the surface. 90% of the world's population was wiped out. This group is known as the first generation of the Lost World. Their leader is Kichi, 22 years old, the girl is Nanase, 18, and the emo boy is Ren, 17. They were all born after the final battle. Their parents are dead, and as orphans, they've just stuck together. There used to be more of them, but most were either eaten or transformed into kaiju. Kichi invites Miu to join their group, but Miu says that she's looking for a group of people who can resurrect the dead. The others are confused, but Kichi tells her that there are rumors of people in Osaka who all have the same face. He believes that they might be what she's looking for. He also knows of a place with over 100 survivors where information is freely exchanged. Before Miu can respond, Ren objects to letting her join. However, as Nanase distracts Miu, Kichi pulls Ren aside and tells him with another girl in their group, they'll finally be eligible to enter Lucilia and get closer to achieving his goal. Ren reluctantly agrees, and the group begin packing for their journey. One thing that catches Miu's attention is their food supply, centipede kaiju meat. Miu freaks out, but Kichi explains that while he knows about the dangers of eating too much of it, it's their only food source. If they don't eat it, then they die. Miu realizes that everything that they did in Cluster 7, every effort to contain the mutation and control the variants, was ultimately for nothing. She decides to keep her leg powers a secret in case the group ever begins mutating. The group heads out and passes through Osaka Station, where they're suddenly attacked by a spinning spiky kaiju. It chases them down a hallway filled with variants, and the group quickly gets out of the way. They try fighting the kaiju, but nothing works, and Nanase gets injured during the attack. Just as the kaiju is about to strike her and Miu, Miu decides to use her mutated leg to knock it away. They escape, but now the group is suspicious about what happened to Miu's leg. Ren pulls out his weapon and is ready to kill her, but Miu dodges and uses her power to strike the kaiju behind them. The spinning kaiju has now taken on a humanoid form and begins attacking Miu. She starts to lose the fight, so Kechi throws smoke bombs and carries her away. While hiding, Ren insists that Miu can't stay with them because she's a variant. Kechi argues that she saved them and clearly isn't like the other variants. Still, he admits that he's curious about her powers. Miu then explains that her father was an evolve, and their mother was an ordinary human, so only one of her legs carried the evolve gene. Suddenly, they hear a sound in the hallway. A humanoid figure waves at them and it starts charging. It's the spinning kaiju, now in full human form. The group hides in a bathroom, but the kaiju finds them by slithering through the toilet. As it goes berserk, Miu realizes its weakness. They escape through the rooftop where Miu reveals her plan to take it down. As they prepare, the kaiju appears behind them. Kechi shouts for them to shoot it in the penis, but its weak point, which is actually an eyeball sensor. The kaiju knocks the boys aside and comes face to face with Miu and Nanase. The two girls jump off the rooftop and the kaiju follows. They manage to hang onto a ledge while Nanase aims and shoots the kaiju in the pinar. The creature crashes into the ground where it's torn apart by swarming variants. Ren begins to change his mind about Miu, finally accepting her. The group celebrate briefly before continuing their journey. They travel from city to city, eventually stopping to eat some more of that kaiju meat. We see Kichi and Nanase beginning to change as they consume it. Both have dreamed about finally reaching Haruka's, a sanctuary rumored to be humanity's last safe zone. Kichi warns Miu that they have to reach Haruka's, that they'll need to pass through Dontobori. That area is crawling with tall type kaijus, and even worse, Dontobori has a special guard that they have to face. The volume ends with the group preparing for their most dangerous stretch yet. The group reaches Dontobori, ready to execute their plan. Kichi fires his gun into the air and shouts to attract all the variants in the area. A massive swarm of variants emerge and begins chasing after them. The group starts hurting more variants around the area, but they're suddenly cut off by a claw-type kaiju. However, instead of attacking them, the claw kaiju begins attacking the variants. More kaiju types appear, igniting a chaotic war between the kaijus and the variants. Using the chaos as a distraction, Kichi plans to slip through the battle and cross the bridge to reach Haruka's. As they prepare to cross, Miu becomes distracted when she sees a variant regenerating its arms by eating kaiju flesh. Her hesitation gives the special guard enough time to spot them. It unleashes a barrage of high-pressured water shots, destroying the bridge. With the bridge gone, there's no other way to cross without being seen. Ren unexpectedly tells Miu to defeat the special guard by herself. The rest of the group thinks he's crazy, but Ren insists that Miu won't die so easily, because she also has something that she's fighting for. Miu agrees, and the plan is set in motion. Kichi and Nanase act as decoys to distract the guard, while Miu uses the Ferris wheel carts as weapons, launching them at it. The guard turns his attention to Miu and fires at the Ferris wheel, causing it to collapse. While it's distracted, Ren explains that the guard has a brief pause whenever it reloads. Miu emerges from the debris and Ren moves in to distract the guard. It launches a powerful attack at him, giving Miu time to transform her leg into a blade. The guard fires a blade from its head, piercing Miu's leg. However, she manages to slice the guard in half, killing it. Though victorious, Miu is badly wounded. Ren carries her across what remains of the bridge, and the group successfully crosses Dontobori. They take shelter in a nearby building. As Miu rests, she dreams of her brother. In the dream, her brother tells her that he wants to become an evolve so he can protect her someday. She wakes up and remembers that the variant that regenerated its arm. She tells the group that she needs to eat centipede kaiju meat to heal her leg. Nanase offers her some, and Miu hesitates before taking a bite. To her surprise, she enjoys it, and keeps eating more while silently tearing up. Later that night, Miu looks out over the city. Ren approaches and speaks with her. Miu tells her that she's fully committed to bringing her brother back. Ren then has a flashback. A woman who resembles Miu is being kidnapped by a hooded man, while an evolve with a beetle tattoo floats above him. Ren vows to save her, but Miu, confused by the outburst, simply thanks him for saving her earlier. Ren then storms out of the room. The next day, the group continues their journey and finally reaches Haruka's. Suddenly, they're ambushed by zoo animal variants. As they flee, a tall-type elephant kaiju appears in front of them. They try to fight it off, but their attacks are useless. Miu tells the others to run while she distracts the creature. She runs up its trunk, flips over its head, and gives the others time to escape. Eventually, they arrive at a massive gate. A man stationed there tells them that they're under the jurisdiction of Lucilia. They must leave. Kichi is stunned to learn that Haruka's has been taken over by Lucilia, but insists that they met the requirements, 2 male and female pairs. As the elephant kaiju approaches, Miyu gets ready to fight again. However, the man on the gate activates a scare tactic that frightens the kaiju away. He opens the gates and lets them in. The man admits that he doesn't know how they found out about the Lucilia entry requirements, but say that they must be tested to prove that they're not variants. He suddenly lunges at Miyu with a knife, aiming for her leg. She instinctively transforms to deflect the attack, and a fight breaks out between them. Despite her efforts, the man overpowers her. The volume ends with the man about to kill Miyu. However, another mysterious man intervenes and stops him, saying, "She's not a variant. She's an evolve." The man at the gate kneels before the mysterious figure he refers to as Master. The Master instructs him to follow him, while the gatekeeper is ordered to stay put. Kichi asks the Master if they completed the entry requirements, but the Master reveals that there was never any requirements to join Lucilia. The Master welcomes them to Reworld, a place where children and adults run around cheerfully, all calling out to him with admiration. However, Ren notices something unsettling. The Master has the same beetle tattoo as the man who kidnapped his friend, though the Master's tattoo is on his hand, not his shoulder. The Master gives them a tour of the building, showing how they grow their food and explaining that over 1,200 people currently live in Haruka's. He also shares his belief in repopulating the world, encouraging the reproduction and the bearing of children. He then takes the group to the rooftop, where they met with a horrific sight: a gigantic king-type kaiju laying dead across the landscape. The Master explains that 30 years ago, this king-type kaiju emerged from beneath the earth and destroyed Tokyo. Afterward, other king-types appeared across the world, and Japan was trampled under their feet. But then a miracle occurred. A human managed to defeat a king-type kaiju, saving Japan. The Master reveals his ambition: to push human evolution to the next stage, take back control of the world, and fully adapt Reworld. He then asks Mio for her name, and she replies, Mio Takashiro, a name that the Master immediately recognizes. He tells them to rest for now, as he has a major favor to ask them the next day. That night, the group showers and settles in, everyone except Mio, who's only there to get answers. Ren is also absent. We see him wandering the halls when he notices someone being carried away. As he tries to investigate, he's stopped by a mysterious man bearing the beetle tattoo on his shoulder, the same man who abducted his friend. We cut to the Master in his office looking at an old photograph of himself with Akira. In the photo, the Master calls him Captain Takashiro. We also get a glimpse of a hidden room where the flesh kaiju is locked in a cage. Later that day, the Master provides the group with food. Mio's still suspicious, asks how he knows about the evolves. The Master reveals that he served in the army after the final battle, and that he himself is an evolve. He explains that Lucilia is composed of 86 evolves. The rest of the population are merely laborers. He invites Mio to join, but she tells him she's only half evolve. However, the Master tells her that a baby born from half evolve and human isn't biologically possible. Before Mio can press him for more answers, Ren enters the room, keeping quiet about what he saw earlier. The Master then explains the favor that he mentioned. He wants the group to go on a special mission to negotiate with someone at Osaka Castle. They will take a safe route, and if they succeed, they will be granted permanent residency at Lucilia. Mio initially declines, but the rest of the group is eager to accept. Then the Master reveals the nature of the negotiation: to gain access to a cloning production machine. After hearing this, Mio agrees to join the mission. The next day, the Master gathers several residents for a mysterious ceremony. 5 residents are selected and injected with a needle. Ren, now increasingly suspicious of Lucilia, keeps a close eye on everything, especially why newcomers like them are being trusted with such a crucial mission. Before the group departs, the Master assigns 2 soldiers to accompany them: the man at the gate, Kato, and the beetle-marked man, Soma. Ren warns the group to be careful, especially Mio. The group arrives safely at Osaka Castle, but before they can enter,
A fury of arrows rain down on them. Mio jumps in front of the group and urges them to take cover. A large group of samurais appear on top of the castle, demanding they leave and refusing any negotiations. Cannons are launched, forcing the group to run inside the castle. While inside, a samurai confronts them and a battle breaks out with Soma. Soma gains the upper hand but is nearly defeated, until a distraction from Mio allows him to kill the samurai by bursting his head open. As the group continues forward, someone watches them on a monitor saying, "Is that?" They enter a room filled with samurais, and another intense battle begins. While fighting, Mio catches a glimpse of a familiar face. Her father, Akira. Kado and Soma continue battling the samurai until a voice demands them all to stop and remove their helmets. The group is stunned. All of the samurais have the same face, clones of Akira. The original Akira steps out of the shadows, still youthful due to cells that prevent him from aging. He apologizes to Mio for attacking them and asks why she left Cluster 7, the shelter that he built to protect her. Soma reveals that the master's gift to Akira was his own daughter, Mio. We finally learn that the master's name is Narumi. Akira says that he will never allow Narumi access to the cloning machine. Kado and Soma become enraged, but Akira swiftly defeats both of them with ease. Mio is furious to learn that the father figure that she once admired was nothing more than just a clone. Still, she asks Akira about the cloning machine and whether he knows what happened to her brother. Akira confirms that he does know what happened to Naoki. This angers Mio even more. She accuses Akira of not being a real father, saying that if he were there, he could have easily defeated Kanade. Akira explains that his main duty was to protect the cloning machine from falling into Narumi's hands. Mio pleads with Akira to let her use the machine to bring back Naoki, but Akira refuses. He says that even if he's brought back, he'll be an empty shell, devoid of memories or personalities, just like Shirosaki was. Akira doesn't want Mio to suffer the same pain that he did. The volume ends with Mio rejecting his decision and declaring that if he won't let her use the cloning machine, then she'll kill him. Now, I haven't been interrupting much while reading because I've just been locked in with the story, but there are a lot of things that kind of don't make sense to me. First off, I was wrong when I assumed that it was like an interspace battle involving king types. It is now confirmed to have been the final battle, with king type kaijus coming from the same world, not from like other dimensions or planets. But this does raise a couple of questions. Are there king types in other countries? Is there like an American king type kaiju? Which one was killed in Japan, and more importantly, how was it killed and by whom? The story implies that the answer might be Akira, but I honestly don't believe this version of Akira is the original. It's just a gut feeling, but something feels a little off about him. Right now, this part of the series isn't as wild or insane as I thought it was going to be. I expected something closer to Kaijus in Space kind of arc, but instead, we're diving into themes similar to Starving Anonymous Re, a new perspective of a kaiju-infested world with a major time skip to shake up the narrative. Which honestly, I do kind of like this better than the Kaijus in Space arc, to be honest. It is definitely not the same feeling I had when I first fell in love with the story, but it's not as disappointing or awful as how I felt during the part 3 video. It is different, but it has something. But before we get to the next part, I just want to say that we now have a Discord server. So if you guys want to talk about your favorite series, get recommendations, and just connect with some like-minded fans of mine, then this is the server for you. We'll soon be hosting live community events like games, live reactions, and live readings only on the Discord server. So if you want to be involved in this, then why not scroll down and join our community. Also, we just opened up a Patreon, so if you guys want early access videos, uncensored videos, and just to support the channel in general, then why not go ahead and check out the Patreon. But back to the video. The battle between Akira and Mio begin, but it's heavily one-sided as Akira easily dodges all of her attacks. Everyone stops fighting just to watch, but Akira effortlessly ends the fight just using his 2 fingers. He tells Mio to forget about everything and just return to Cluster 7. Even if she continues to resist, Akira reveals that he made her with only 1 leg for self-defense. Despite being beaten, Mio continues to beg for her brother to be revived. She lunges in for another punch as Akira silently apologizes to her, only to be suddenly struck by a variant's arm. It turns out Mio was able to evolve her arm. Akira is stunned, saying it's impossible unless she consumed the special meat. Mio's arm begins to throb in pain, but Akira offers to help her control it. Mio refuses and runs away. The rest of Lucia's group also leaves, leaving Akira alone with his thoughts. He quietly tells Shirosaki that he did the right thing. Back at Haruka's, Soma and Kato report what happened to Narumi. In response, Narumi gives them the order to begin the crusade. Mio isolates herself, clearly shaken, but Ren encourages her to stay focused on her goal. Sometime later, Ren confronts Soma, aiming a sniper rifle at his head and demanding that he return his sister. Soma claims that he doesn't remember kidnapping a woman, but says he might know where she is, and tells Ren to follow him. Soma leads Ren to a large room with a massive cage. Inside, one of the women chosen earlier is trapped. Her body begins to deform and melt into a kaiju as part of the evolution ceremony. Suddenly, she's dragged away into the shadows. Ren demands to know where his sister is, but when he turns around, he's faced with a massive two-headed kaiju composed of failed evolve experiments. Soma calmly explains that Narumi is using this creature to revive the Messiah, then shuts the doors and lets the kaiju consume Ren. Outside, Narumi stands before a crowd of evolves and announces the beginning of the crusade. Their goal is to take over Osaka Castle. Back with Mio and the others, the ground begins to rumble. As they rush outside, they see the monstrous kaiju bursting out from the side of Haruka's, killing several residents in the process. Ren's sniper rifle falls from above, and when Mio looks up, she sees Ren hanging from the kaiju's leg. Narumi appears with the evolves and tells Mio that the giant variant will help them take Osaka Castle. He asks her which side she's on. Mio pauses but doesn't answer. Meanwhile, Akira becomes aware of the threat and calls for backup. As Lucia and Mio's group head towards Osaka Castle, the giant variant kaiju makes quick work of multiple tall-type kaijus in its path. Upon reaching the castle, Narumi makes one final demand. He asks Akira for the cloning machine. Akira refuses, saying that nothing good would come from reviving that man. I think at this point, it's pretty clear that Narumi wants to resurrect Sayotome. Sayotome is like the super smart scientist. He probably figured out a way to defeat the king-type kaiju, and now Narumi just thinks of him as like this god. This is the only theory or the only person that just makes the most sense to revive. During the tense standoff, Mio climbs up the variant's leg to reach Ren. As the variant moves in to destroy the castle, a jet-like structure crashes directly into its shoulder. It's revealed to be the Tower of the Sun, operated by a future version of Kenji. Kenji transforms the tower into a kaiju mech and begins battling the variant. Inside the castle, Narumi and his army come face to face with Akira and his clones. One evolve tries to charge in but is quickly taken down by Akira, triggering a mass battle between Lucilia and Akira's clones. Meanwhile, Mio reaches Ren, but the failed evolve experiments begin to absorb her. Ren urges her to leave him behind and just go save her family, but Mio remembers her brother and evolves both her arms. The variant kaiju regains the upper hand, but Kenji bites into it and flips it over, seemingly winning the battle. Emerging from the smoke is Mio, now nearly fully transformed, carrying Ren to safety. Inside the castle, Akira appears to have the upper hand, with Kenji even radioing in to say that he'll join the battle soon. However, Narumi warns Akira to not let his guard down. The volume ends with a chilling reveal that the variant kaiju is still alive, standing back up, but now looking completely different. The variant kaiju has already grown larger and stronger, kicking Kenji and sending him crashing into the castle. Meanwhile, Nanase and Kichi race up the stairs to get Akira's help to save Mio and Ren, unaware that Mio has already rescued Ren. However, Mio has almost fully transformed into a variant. Ren tells her that he already lost his sister, but she still has a father, so she should go and tell him how she truly feels, one more time. She thanks him and charges straight towards the castle. It's then revealed that the variant kaiju has merged with both Soma and Kato, dramatically increasing its power. The fusion grants it new abilities and allows it to adapt, ultimately overwhelming Kenji's attacks. Inside the castle, Akira finishes his conversation with Narumi and fully transforms into his evolved form. Narumi also reveals his own evolved form, and the two begin an epic battle. While Akira and Narumi clash, Kenji's fight with the variant kaiju reaches a turning point. Kenji fires a massive laser beam, destroying one of the variant's heads. But even after that, the kaiju regains the upper hand and prepares to strike the final blow. Until the tower reflects the attack and begins going haywire. As the variant charges in for the kill, the tower retaliates, killing and devouring the entire variant. Narumi then explains his plan to revive the Messiah. Akira says that it's impossible to bring back the same person, as a clone wouldn't retain its original memories or personality. However, Narumi claims that it might be possible if he has the original brain. We then cut to a flashback of the final battle. Akira, Kenji, and 2 other soldiers are preparing for combat when one of the king types uses his fingertips to crush them. Akira and Kenji manages to dodge, but the other 2 are killed. As more king types approach, the earth starts to tremble. Suddenly, the Japan king type awakens. The awakened king begins attacking the other king types, killing one of them. During the chaos, Akira realizes that the person controlling the king is none other than Takashige, the creepy teacher. Man, I'm done with this story, bro. Just when I thought things were going fine, they just had to bring back the freaking pedo teacher. From that moment on, Narumi began to view Takashige as the Messiah, the savior who had used his final strength to put the other king types back to sleep. Narumi tried to revive his body, but the king's insides had merged with him. They were only able to recover his brain. With the Messiah revived, Narumi plans to use him to exterminate all the special creatures and eventually reset the entire world. Akira prepares to kill Narumi, but the rest of the evols attack him. Meanwhile, Kenji loses control of the tower and decides to risk his own life by merging his consciousness with it. Akira becomes overwhelmed by the evolves, but just as Narumi is about to strike the killing blow, Miyu, now fully transformed, jumps in and saves him. She screams out for her father and charges forward with fury in her heart, tearing through evolves left and right until Narumi intervenes and stops her. This enrages Akira, who tries to fight back, but Miyu steps in and attacks him instead. As Akira struggles to fend off both Miyu and the other evolves, he tries to reach out to her emotionally, but his words aren't getting through. At that moment, the tower crashes into the building. Kenji communicates with Akira, telling him that he's linked himself with the tower but cannot hold on much longer. Akira asks Kenji for one final favor: take Miyu and rush her to Sayotomi's lab. Just as Miyu is about to land the final blow, Narumi charges in to kill Akira, but Akira grabs Miyu and takes her safely. He begins to speak to her, telling her that he understands why she hates him, but clones are just clones, empty vessels. Then, he shares Shirasaki's final words: tell Miyu and Naoki I will always love them. Akira then echoes those same words to Miyu. Miyu begins to revert back to her normal form, breaking down in tears. The volume ends with Akira coughing up blood, the panel revealing that the entire back portion of his body has been sliced off clean, ultimately killing him. I kind of knew Akira was gonna die since the story's clearly been building up Miyu as the new main character. I'm thinking the same with Kenji. He's starting to feel like that new mentor figure for her, so I'm expecting him to die around the finale, but let's see if I'm right about that. After Akira is murdered, the evolves begin celebrating their victory. Outside, Soma is barely alive, crawling through the rubble, until he's found by Ren. Soma begs for his life, claiming that he knows where Ren's sister really is, but without hesitation, Ren drives a long metal rod through Soma's head, killing him. Back inside, Narumi tells Miyu that he loved Akira, but now that he's gone, both of their goals can be realized. Miyu agrees that part of her once thought things might be better if Akira was gone, but now, she finally understands and she vows never to forgive Narumi for murdering her father. She begins to transform into her variant form, but Akira's spirit appears to comfort her, telling her not to go down that path. Suddenly, a smokescreen explodes, and as it clears, Miyu stands revealed in her evolved form. She proclaims that she will now be the new protector of the cloning machine. In response, Narumi commands his army of evolves to attack, but Miyu swiftly takes down 6 with ease. Narumi charges in to strike her himself, but Miyu quickly overpowers him and pins him to the ground using her heel. The other evolves try to get involved, but Narumi orders them to stand down. He says that the next time he won't be so careless, but before he can finish, Miyu punches him in the face, determined to end the fight here and now. However, Narumi reveals that he has kidnapped Kichi and Nanase. He gives Mio an ultimatum: save her friends or protect the cloning machine. But before she can choose, the tower begins to rumble. The kaiju is going out of control. Narumi commands the evolves to kill Kenji. Suddenly, a sword flies towards Narumi. He reflects it, but the distraction gives Mio just enough time to smack him in the face and rescue Kichi and Nanase. The group escape as Mio jumps onto the tower, but when the evolves reach Kenji's body, Mio swiftly kills them all. She tells Kenji that she's Akira's daughter and then asks him for a favor. The group escape the castle and are picked up by Kenji and Mio. They've won the battle, but Narumi has captured the cloning device and is now prepared to revive the Messiah. The group arrive at a park where Sayotome's lab is hidden. Suddenly, Kenji begins going berserk again, but Sayotome appears and successfully unlinks him from the tower. He then leads everyone into the lab, where Kenji receives medical treatment. Sayotome introduces himself and praises Akira for giving him something as valuable as himself: Mio. Mio then begins shaking violently and transforms back into her normal form. Sayotome tells her that she needs a lot of rest, but Mio questions whether any of it even matters since Narumi now has the cloning device. She insists that she'll stop him, and as she walks out, she comes face to face with Miku. Miku tells her that she was childhood friends with Akira and that they both love Miu deeply. She hugs Mio and says that being able to protect her at the end probably made Akira truly happy. The two of them cry into each other's arms. Sayotome explains that it will take 10 days for Takeshige to be revived. In that time, they'll wait for Kenji to heal and call in every evolve they can to prepare for the final battle. In the meantime, Miu would train to control her new powers. Days pass, and while Mio's strength has increased, she still hasn't been able to transform into her evolved form. Ren approaches her and tells her to stop holding back. She's thinking too much about her father's will. He asks her, what does she want to fight for? Mio begins thinking about her new friends, and finally, she transforms into her evolved state. She thanks Ren, and Kenji walks in to begin training with her. It's now been 8 days since the battle in Osaka, and the group is ready to stop Takeshige's revival. They arrive at Haruka's and break in through the front, only to find a horrific scene. A pile of corpses, not just civilians but evolves too, scattered all over the field. The cloning machine has been cracked open. They find a survivor hiding nearby and demand to know what happened. He explains that the day before, Narumi held a ceremony to revive the Messiah, but when Takeshige awakened, he broke through the capsule. The last thing he said was that he wanted to see the sky. As they prepare to head to the rooftop, Kichi, Nanase, and Ren part ways with Miu, saying that they have something else to do. They wish each other farewell. Mio then joins up with Kenji's team. Kenji's group reaches the rooftop and they see Takeshige sitting on a throne, the body of the king type he had previously killed laying behind him. He then mutters, "Where am I? What is this wasteland? Who am I?" Kenji quickly responds that they used to be friends, and that he doesn't want to hurt him. One of the evols gets impatient and orders Takeshige to stand, but he replies, "One thing is clear." He then breaks the evolve's arm, launches him off the building with a swift kick, and then finishes his sentence with, "The impulse to destroy humans." The evolves immediately transform and launch an assault on Takeshige. Kenji warns them to wait, but it's too late. Takeshige effortlessly and brutally slaughters all of them, even though each one is just as strong as Akira. Mio transforms and joins the fight, but her attacks do nothing. Takeshige grabs her by the leg and slams her into the ground. The volume ends with Takeshige preparing to kill her until she transforms back into her normal form. Suddenly, he freezes and he quietly says, "Shirosaki?" Takeshige stops attacking and suddenly regains all of his memories from 25 years ago. Mio tells him that she's not Shirosaki, but he doesn't believe her. Kenji steps in and explains that Mio is the daughter of Akira and Shirosaki. Upon hearing this, Takeshige is disgusted and enraged. He recalls his original goal, to create a brand new world with Shirosaki as his queen by obliterating all of humanity. Kenji interrupts him with a strike to the skull from a giant hammer. Mio and Kenji engage Takeshige in a fierce battle, but he proves far too powerful, knocking them both out with just a single shockwave punch. He grabs Mio and declares that she will be merged with him. Suddenly, the ground begins to shake. A giant foot descends from the sky. It's the king, awakened from his slumber. Clinging to one of the king's tentacles is Narumi. Narumi explains that he wanted to witness Takashige's full potential, so he merged him with the DNA of all 150 known kaiju types, giving him the combined strength and bloodlust of every kaiju in existence. Narumi had managed to escape the earlier massacre and encountered the king, who awakened due to Takashige's revival. Because Takashige and the king are linked, Narumi wants Takashige to merge with the king once again, but Takashige refuses and blasts off the king's fingers. Takashige transformed his arm into a massive kaiju blaster, and then he fully evolves into his evolve form, a gigantic creature with a kaiju-shaped head, blasters, and wings. He soars into the air and launches a barrage at the king, eventually pulling out a tail-like weapon, melting the king's face, killing him. As the king falls, we cut to Haruka's. Ren is running down a hallway and finds a group of survivors. Among them, he finally reunites with his long-lost sister. We cut back to Mio. Behind her, Narumi collapses. Takashige approaches ready to devour Mio in order to complete their merger, but Narumi begs Takashige to devour him instead, so that he can pass along his knowledge. Takashige agrees and he consumes Narumi, but as he does, Narumi's memories begin flooding his mind. Takashige confirms that Mio is truly Shirasaki's daughter, and becomes overwhelmed with fury. He vows to destroy the entire planet and erase everything. Suddenly, massive roots erupt from the ground and twist into a gigantic tree, the roots containing pods filled with giant centipedes and kaijus. Through Narumi's memories, Takashige learns the origin of the kaiju. At the dawn of time, the earth released a seed of life. Over eons, these roots took hold of the planet and evolved their own living creatures, the kaijus. These monsters were waiting to cleanse the earth once civilization became a parasitic force. Now, they've risen to reclaim the planet and rebuild a new ecosystem. Takashige takes aim at the building and fires at Mio. We then cut back to Ren feeling the tremble of Takashige's assault. His sister introduces him to her husband and child, grateful that Ren lived long enough to reunite with them. Ren realizes though that he has a new family now, in Mio. Back on the rooftop, Mio shields Kenji from Takashige's attack but is left severely injured. Takashige seizes Mio and prepares to devour her. Kenji rises and realizes that the only way to save her is to sacrifice himself. He yells at Mio to tell Miku that he loves her, then kicks Mio out of the way and is devoured by Takashige. Now that Kenji is gone, Takashige grabs Mio once again. Ren and the rest of the group arrive on the rooftop, but Takashige points his blaster at them, but suddenly stops moving. We enter Takashige's mind. He's in a hospital, and then Akira walks up to him calling out to Miko and Kenji, announcing that the baby has been safely delivered. Takashige is now experiencing Kenji's memories. He witnesses Shirasaki giving birth to Mio, all while the Tree of Destruction tears the world apart. As he watches, Kenji's voice echoes in his head asking, "Can you really kill that child?" Then we flash back to Shirasaki's death. She died shielding Mio from falling debris. Her final words is that she'll always love her kids. Takashige begins to cry. Meanwhile, Mio, Ren, and the others are falling from the crumbling rooftop, accepting their fate, until Takashige rescues them. Still in tears, Takashige admits that he almost killed the child Shirasaki gave her life to protect. He tells Mio to live. Then, he flies into the air and crashes straight through the Tree of Destruction, creating a hole in it. He dives inside and he blows it up, sacrificing himself to be reunited with Shirasaki. The tree dissolves. However, at the end, the kaijus and the pods are released into the world. The group panics, but Mio stands firm. She says that no matter what, they will continue to fight, so they can all live together. We cut to 15 years into the future. The world's still battling the kaijus. However, we see future versions of Kechi and Nanase now raising multiple children of their own. Mio and Ren are also shown with their own kids. The series ends with the family going into war with the remaining kaijus in the world. And that was Creature. This series was super long, but it is finally done, and honestly, this ending was a bit better than I thought. I thought that part 2 was gonna be a whole space battle with a ton of king-size kaijus, but I'm super happy it went the direction that it did. It went back to the original formula of humanity trying their hardest to survive a kaiju invasion. Even though Mio is a evolve, I still really like the dynamic between her and the group just trying their hardest to survive, similar to like The Walking Dead but with kaijus. Honestly, the only real problem I had with this part was the inclusion of Takashige. We all know bro is a creep and a total psychopath that would literally destroy the entire world just for one girl, but for some reason people still like this guy. And I don't mean fans of the series, even though I bet there's a couple of you out there, but I'm talking about like in-universe people praising this man. The mangaka really wants Takashige to get over and be liked, and for me, it's just not working at all. If it didn't work the first time or the time after that, then why try it a third time? You know what I mean? However, the things I did like about the series did stay. I really liked the characters, old and the new. I liked the kaiju designs, I loved the gore, I loved the concept. The story itself was great in the beginning, the middle got a bit screwy, and the finale was a mix of both the good and bad, so it was okay. Overall, I would say I did enjoy the series a good amount of time. It does have its problems, and again, Takashige was a huge problem for me, so I would give this series a good 6 out of 10. But thank you guys for watching this super long video. I'm glad to have finished this series, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let's talk about this series over on our Discord, and if you want exclusive looks at videos and early release stuff, then go ahead and join our Patreon. If you want more horror content like this one, then why not scroll down and hit that subscribe button. But I'll be seeing you guys in the next video.